Chapter 476. Ling Han had just eaten 2 mouthfuls and was about to speak when his phone rang. He put down his chopsticks and looked at the caller ID. His expression tensed up as he looked at Yi Huanyan apologetically and answered the call. "Is that so? Okay, I got it. I'm on my way. Where are you going?" Yi Huanyan stood up. Ling Han had already rushed out of the living room and was some distance away. She raised her voice and shouted, "Aren't you going to eat?" Ling Han did not seem to hear her. Even though he was using his walking stick, he walked like the wind. Seeing him like this, Yi Huanyan felt that he had something urgent to attend to, so she got up and hurried after him. Ling Han walked to the main entrance and pulled open the red door. There was a black Rolls-Royce parked at the entrance. Gu Qi looked weathered. The moment he opened the car door, his black woolen coat and felt hat could not hide his aura. It was the kind of aura that came from someone who had been through a lot and was able to maintain his composure at all times. "Dad!" Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise as she looked at the person in disbelief. Gu Qi removed his hat and smiled lovingly at Yi Huanyan. "I'm sorry to have made you worry." Yi Huanyan led Gu Qi through the long corridor and into the dining hall in the backyard. Yi had her head lowered as she stared at the rice in her bowl with a dull expression. She had no appetite. "Mom, look who's here?" Her excited voice did not fit in with the atmosphere in the dining hall. Yi raised her head in astonishment and looked at the newcomer perfunctorily. However, the moment she saw Gu Hong, the dullness in her eyes seemed to have been refreshed, and they shone brightly again. She had always been a calm person. She staggered to her feet and knocked over the cups and plates on the table. Ji Xiaoye helped her up, but she saw her rush around the table like a gust of wind and throw herself on Gu Qi. The two of them did not say anything and just hugged quietly for a while. They were a married couple who had gone through countless trials and tribulations before and after their marriage. Some words did not need to be said, but they were already in sync with each other. "All right, the children are watching." Guling finally opened his mouth and gently patted his wife's back. Yi wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, sniffled, and said rudely, "I've endured for so many days without crying. These little brats should be satisfied." Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere immediately became harmonious. Aunt Zhang had already added another set of cutlery. Yi Huanyan pulled Gu Hong to sit beside Yi. After everyone was seated, Yi took the lead and asked, "How did you come back?" Gu Hong glanced at Ling Han. "This is all thanks to Ling Han." Yi was slightly stunned. Everyone's eyes fell on Ling Han. "What did you do?" Yi Huanyan asked hesitantly. Ling Han's expression was indifferent. The whole family lived together in harmony and happiness. Even if they didn't live in a place like the Four Seasons Villa, or even a place as big as the old house, as long as everyone was there, they would be very happy. Unfortunately, this happiness didn't last long. As the head of the family and the pillar of the family, Yi completely returned to her previous arrogant and domineering self after Gu Ming returned. First, she criticized the structure of the entire old house. Then, she was dissatisfied with what Ling Han had done. She was nitpicking at the bones in an egg. "The strawberries you bought are too big. They're obviously sprayed with pesticides. I want the natural kind, the imported kind. Nanao is still growing. If you let him eat something bad, I won't let you go." Yi leaned against the rocking chair. There was a black sandalwood coffee table between her and Nanao. On the table was a box of freshly washed strawberries. They were bright red, which was quite rare in this season. Both the grandmother and grandson were basking in the sun with contented expressions. Now did not have any objections to the strawberries and ate happily. Only Yi nagged from time to time, saying that Ling Han could not do this well, nor could he do that well. Ling Han listened respectfully and didn't refute a word. Gu Ming came down from the second floor and shook her head helplessly. "Only you can stand my mother's character. She's so irritable at such an old age. Ling Han will drive her crazy sooner or later." Yi Huanyan held a book and couldn't read a word. Out of sight, out of mind. Shouldn't you go to the company to prepare for your movie? Gu Ming looked up at her and reminded her, "You're holding the book upside down." Yi Huanyan put the book on the table indifferently and said seriously, "I'm afraid that if I leave, my mother will torture Ling Han to death. Your mother is just casually nagging. She's old. You should be more understanding." Gu Ming looked downstairs and smiled. "Do you want me to say something good for you?" Chapter 477. After a few days at the prosecutor's office, Gu Heng's attitude towards Ling Han seemed to have changed a lot. Since he had spoken, Yi Huanyan believed that he would give Ling Han away out in front of an E. In fact, she had been hanging around Gu Heng at home for the past 2 days because she had been waiting for him to say that. After that, she would pack up her things and move back to Haiyan Media. "Why do you have to move back to the office?" When Yi was a little dissatisfied, she stood in front of Yi Huanyan's car door and refused to move. Yi Huanyan helplessly fastened her seatbelt. "If it weren't for the fact that the old house is too far away from the city center, I would also like to drive back every night." The movie has been approved for the 3rd time. This time, the control is very strict. If there is any problem in the movie, I will have to deal with it in time. Just stay here. My brother is with you, right? When Yi sighed, "Your brother and your father are locked in the study all day long to discuss countermeasures. Originally, Xiaoyu was there to talk to me, but your brother is such a troublemaker. I don't know why he keeps arguing with her. Now that Xiaoyu has moved back to the city center, you have to leave too." "What about Xiao Wu? Isn't Xiao Wu staying here to accompany you?" "Oh, don't mention it. What kind of habit does Xiao Wu have? She wakes up at 5 in the morning to practice martial arts. She's so noisy. She's even more annoying than Gu Min." Okay. Xiao Wu is going to practice martial arts in the morning. She's used to it after so many years. I'll ask her to be more careful and go to another courtyard to practice martial arts, okay? Anyway, this mansion is too small. It can't be compared to our villa. When Yi leaned against her car window and touched her face with an aggrieved expression, Yi Huanyan burst out laughing. "Mom, you can say this in front of Ling Han, but don't say it in front of your own family. When you and my dad were looking for, or in South Africa, you even slept in the slums, right?" When Yi pursed her lips. "How is it the same? Now that I'm old, shouldn't I live in a more spacious place? Then why don't I ask Aunt Zhang to help you tidy up West Court, and you can live there alone? Is it big enough?" "Stinking brat. All right, Mom, I'm really leaving. I have an appointment with the publicity department to discuss the movie poster." When Yi was just chatting with Yi Huanyan for a while, trying to find something to talk about. When it was time to leave, she stood up straight and waved at her with a smile on her face. In fact, Yi Huanyan knew that when Yi was quite satisfied with this kind of life. On the way to Haiyan Media, they passed by the Pleasure Group building. Just as Gucci had said, the entire building had been sealed. The entrance was very bleak. The once glorious building was now only a dark lobby, without a trace of light. After Ling Han lost control of the Pleasure Group, the whole Pleasure Group was on the decline. Umbo and his son were tricked by Gu Duo and He Xiao. They had just gotten control of the company, and before they could do anything, a smuggling case broke out. Ling Han was not involved, and the father and son were the scapegoats. They were still under investigation at the police station. Yi Huanyan parked her car in front of the entrance and looked through the front passenger window at the familiar building. She had an indescribable feeling in her heart. Knock, knock, knock. She heard someone knocking on the window behind her. She was stunned and turned around. Xiao Dong was standing outside the window with a happy expression. She quickly rolled down the window. "Xiao Dong, I thought it looked like your car from afar. Now that I'm here, it's really you. Why are you here? Is there any new progress in the company's case?" Yi Huanyan shook her head. "I am just passing by. I am on my way to the office." Xiao Dong sighed. "I see." Yi Huanyan saw Xiao Dong in his office attire and asked, "Xiao Dong, have you changed to a new job?" Xiao Dong pursed his lips and replied, "Not yet. I went to apply for a new job today, and I saw your car parked here. I thought there is some new progress in the company, and that's why I am here. Yi Huanyan was a little surprised. Most of the people in the group have changed jobs, right? Why are you looking for a new job? Although Ling Han is not in charge of pleasure now, his assistants and secretaries had been working for him for many years. He had given them recommendation letters before he left, and he can introduce them to jobs in the industry. Xiao Dong is the current secretary of the secretaries, and he should be able to find a new job. If possible, I still want to return to the company to work. Xiao Dong lowered his head and said softly. Yi Huanyan was stunned and felt touched. Oh. Xiao Dong suddenly looks up. Sister Yan Yan, are you still using your old phone number? Can you tell me if there are any new developments in the company? I will be back as soon as possible. Yes. It's still the old phone number. Good. Xiao Dong looked at his watch. It's almost time for my interview. Sister Yan Yan, I will not delay you from going to the office. I will make a move first. Okay. Yi Huanyan slowly rolled up the car window. The rearview mirror reflected the direction in which Xiao Dong was running away in her high heels. She frowned and turned around to take a look. Venture Media? Pleasure is the media company opposite the Pleasure Group. They have been developing rapidly in the past few years, and they are trying to acquire Pleasure Group. Everyone in the industry knew that Huanyu Group was a hot potato now. It seemed to have a strong foundation, but no one knew what the result of the smuggling case would be. So even if there were people who wanted to buy it, they didn't dare to make a move at this time. One Shiyu and Wen Shiyu might be desperate when they are released from the prosecutor's office. If that's the case, it is possible to sell the company to Venture Media at a low price. Thinking of this, Yi Huanyan's frown deepened. At Haiyan Media, Gu Qi had already devoted himself to work for a week. He seemed to have completely forgotten about the gloomy atmosphere at the Four Seasons Villa and only treated himself as an employee of Haiyan Media, working conscientiously. When he saw Yi Huanyan, he entered the office with a stack of documents. These are the 3 posters given by the design department. Which one do you want to choose? Yi Huanyan stared at the posters for a few seconds. What do you think? Gu Qi pointed to the middle poster without hesitation. It has a rich meaning, does not step on the red line, and is creative. Then I will choose this one. Yi Huanyan put down her coat and looked indifferent. She was only interested in the movie itself. Someone else will take care of the publicity. How about the finished movie? Have you sent it to all the cinemas? Some of them have not arrived yet. We will give them the keys when the movie premieres. After the results of the 3rd review came out, the entire production team heaved a huge sigh of relief and officially entered the promotion work of the movie. Hey, you can't go in. There was a commotion at the door. Chapter 478. By the time Yi Huanyan looked up, the door to the office had been violently pushed open. Gu Qi turned around in displeasure and chided. What's going on? Don't you know that I'm in the middle of a discussion with President Gu? Xiao Zhang, who was in the secretary's office, had a look of panic on her face. Assistant Gu, I couldn't stop him. He insisted on coming in. She was referring to the culprit who had forced the door open, Mr. Song Xiaobo. Yi Huanyan's brain short-circuited when she saw Song Xiaobo. How could she have forgotten about this fellow? She had been overseas for some time and had been staying in the old mansion in the suburbs ever since she had returned. She had not been in contact with Song Xiaobo. Song Xiaobo, what are you trying to do now? Gu Qi's face was full of anger. Didn't I say that you were only allowed to stay upstairs in the apartment and not go downstairs? Song Xiaobo's face was full of anger as he shouted, You even told me that I would be able to see her very soon. Yi Huanyan looked in the direction that Song Xiaobo was pointing at and quickly realized that the culprit was most likely herself. You liar. Song Xiaobo looked at Gu Qi in exasperation. You're just stopping me from seeing her. What a troublemaker. Gu Qi's face darkened. Where's the security? Get the security to drag him out. Yi Huanyan quickly stood up. Hey, wait a minute. Gucci. Gucci frowned when he heard Yi Huanyan's voice. He lifted his head and glanced at the secretary. The secretary tactfully left and closed the door behind her. There were only 3 people left in the room. Song Xiaobo glared at Gucci angrily, then walked towards Yi Huanyan. During this period of time, he had been living in the apartment on the top floor of Haiyan Media. He tinkered with his computer code every day and did not go out much. Before Yi Huanyan left with Chun Yin and the others, she instructed Gucci to take care of him. Gucci also arranged for his secretary to send him some food and drinks from time to time. Everything had been peaceful. After the incident at the Four Seasons Villa, Nanao used a self-made program to chat with Song Xiaobo at the hotel. The two of them communicated for about 3 days before Song Xiaobo contacted Gucci and told him about what happened in Los Angeles. Therefore, Gucci had always had a problem with him. When he looked at him, it was no different from looking at a retard. "You've been looking for me for the past 2 days?" Yi Huanyan asked. "What do you mean by 2 days? I've been looking for you for half a month, but he didn't let me contact you. He said you were busy and asked me to wait for you to come back. When did you come back?" Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. He lifted his head and glanced at Gucci coffee. Gucci handed the coffee to Yi Huanyan. His expression was indifferent. "Second Miss also has things to do after she returned to China. I told you to wait for her to come to the company." Song Xiaobo's face darkened. "You're setting me up, Yi Huanyan. You'll be at a disadvantage in the future if you keep this kind of person by your side." Yi Huanyan held the coffee and raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Gucci's cold and sarcastic expression from the corner of his eye. He smiled helplessly and asked Song Xiaobo, "Why are you looking for me? I'm here now. You can tell me." Song Xiaobo looked anxious. "What else do you want? Where's Minmin? Did Minmin come back with you?" Yi Huanyan's smile deepened. He lifted his eyes and glanced at Gucci. "Didn't you ask Gucci?" "I did, but he doesn't know anything. He didn't say anything and just asked me to wait for you to come back." Yi Huanyan held back his laughter. "Then do you know who Gucci is?" "Who else could he be?" "He's your assistant." Song Xiaobo lifted his head and looked at him with disgust. He added, "He's a shrewd man." Yi Huanyan held the cup with both hands and smiled. "Yes, this shrewd man is Minmin's older brother." Song Xiaobo's expression froze. "Older brother?" "Yes, he's her biological brother." Yi Huanyan raised his eyebrows. He stood up from the sofa with his coffee and walked towards his desk. "So if you have any questions about Minmin, you can ask him. There's no one in this world who knows Minmin better than he does." Song Xiaobo's lips twitched. He lifted his head and looked at Gucci in disbelief. Gucci's lips curved into a cold smile. He glanced at him before lifting his head to look at Yi Huanyan. "President Gu, I'll discuss the poster with the design department and publicity department. If you have any other questions, feel free to look for me." Yi Huanyan nodded. He looked at the dumbstruck Song Xiaobo and lowered his head to take a sip of coffee. He immediately felt refreshed. She had always known that Song Xiaobo was an idiot who couldn't take care of himself. However, she didn't expect that he didn't even know that Gucci was a shareholder. He even pointed at Gucci's nose and scolded him for being shrewd. This was in front of her. She didn't know what kind of nasty words he said behind her back. How could he still want to woo her sister? It could be said that it was wishful thinking. "Yi Huanyan." Song Xiaobo adjusted his glasses. He looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. "If I were you, I would chase after him right now and apologize to Gucci then. I would do as he says and go wherever he wants me to." Yi Huanyan didn't even lift his head. It was easy to guess that this rascal was at a loss of what to do now. Just as he finished speaking, there was a light click from the office door. When Yi Huanyan lifted his head again, Song Xiaobo had already left. He was quite proactive. But when he mentioned Gu Min, Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. She recalled that Gu Min had called her last night, but she hadn't picked up the call. It was too late, so she hadn't called back. At this thought, she took out her cell phone and called Gu Min. The call was picked up very quickly. Gu Min's voice sounded a little pleased. Hello, 2nd Mississippi. What a pleasant voice. What are you doing? I just finished soaking in the hot spring. I'm going to have lunch now. After lunch, I'm going to get some sun. Do you look like you're under house arrest? Isn't this too outrageous? What can I do? After Madam was taken away by you guys, Smith still has to continue guarding our villa. He can't be bothered with me and my brother at all. It won't affect him at all if one or two of us leave. The villa's guards are like decorations now. Before I went to the hot spring, I even saw my brother take a few guards to play cards. It's called Fight the Landlord. Gulu is almost as carefree as my brother when he gave him his annual leave, right? He's even more carefree than his annual leave. During the annual leave, when young master calls him, he has to immediately land and rush back even if he's in the sky. Now that he's living like this, my brother has gained almost 5 kilograms. Don't be surprised when you see him. Yi Huanyan laughed. Since no one cares about you, don't you plan to come here? Although it's not as carefree as you at the villa, at least there's someone here who misses you. My second brother would be a ghost if he misses me. Second miss, don't joke around. Gu Min obviously didn't care about Song Xiaobo, so Yi Huanyan didn't mention it anymore. She asked directly, "Oh right, why did you call me last night?" You hung up after one ring. Chapter 479. Phone Call. Gu Min's voice paused and she looked confused. Did I call you? F***ck Yi Huanyan sighed and muttered, that's enough. Maybe I pressed the wrong number. Yi Huanyan was a little speechless. Forget it. You and Song Xiaobo are really a pair. A pair of clowns. Who? Who's Song Xiaobo? You don't even remember who he is, but he offended your second brother because of you. You make it sound like your brother has become the queen mother who separated the cowherd and the weaving girl. Fairy tale? What is it? Yi Huanyan sighed deeply. No one. It's cowherd and weaving girl Gu. If you have time, you should read more books to make up for your childhood. Stop playing with guns. Gu Min spent her childhood playing with guns and shooting with a group of rough old men. When she was a little older, she couldn't control herself. When she was sent to school, she could beat up the entire class of boys. Later on, Gulu was afraid that his sister would cause trouble, so he took the initiative to bring her back and teach her himself. She barely managed to teach her how to read, and it was said that Gulu was the one who taught her how to read. The call ended in a hurry. The moment she hung up, Yi Huanyan felt that her conversation with Gu Min was always incoherent. It was just like how Gu Min usually talked to the group of men at Four Seasons Villa, never getting to the point. It really made her speechless. Not long after she put down the phone, her secretary knocked on the door and came in. She placed an invitation on her desk. This is the invitation to the Fengshan charity banquet. President Gu, are you going? If you are, I'll call them back. Yi Huanyan flipped through the invitation. Only her name was written on it. Is it just for me? The secretary was slightly stunned. Yes. Is there a problem? Nothing. You can leave. Yi Huanyan frowned. I'll call them myself. You don't have to worry about it. Ling Han's name was not on the list. Did that mean that Ling Han was not invited to this charity banquet? Ji Xiaoya was not someone who would make such a mistake. She frowned and dialed the number. The busy tone rang for a long time, but no one answered. After that, her secretary sent her a few clips of the movie trailer for her to look through. She was busy until she got off work, so she temporarily put this matter aside and did not continue to contact Ji Xiaoya. Remaining Life had already reached its final release date. If everything went as planned, it would be a New Year's celebration film, premiering on the first day of the new year. Now, the entire company was working hard to promote this movie. After all, there were many movies released at the same time, so it was not easy to break through and achieve good results. Before she got off work, Gu Qi came in with a tablet to report on her recent activities. Have you decided to go to the charity banquet? Yes. Yi Huanyan nodded. Then, have you decided on a male partner? Gu Qi asked. Of course. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She suddenly realized why Ji Xiaoye had only given her one invitation. The Fengshan charity banquet was a large-scale banquet that gathered all the handsome men and beautiful women in the industry. Whether it was the connections that the businessmen wanted or the entertainment artists wanted, there were countless opportunities for them to show their faces. This was a great way to improve themselves. But some people might not want to go. Ling Han's right leg had not fully recovered, so he had to rely on crutches to walk every day. In this state, he might not want to attend an event like this with her and be judged by others. Yi Huanyan frowned. I'll tell you about the male partner tomorrow. Is it urgent? It's not urgent. Gu Qi looked indifferent. If you don't want to, you can attend with Su Nianhua. After all, he's the male lead of the movie, so it's convenient for you to promote it. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Yes, okay. Gu Qi didn't even have a question. He probably knew what Yi Huanyan was thinking. There's a variety show at Lanjiang TV station the day after tomorrow. There's a weekend appointment with you and the main production team of Remaining Life. Since there's nothing else on that day, I'll agree on your behalf. Yes, I'll leave it to you. Yi Huanyan was a little distracted. That's all for now. When the time comes, I'll inform you in advance, before each event. Oh yeah, you can stay upstairs tonight. I'm going to arrange for Song Xiaobo to stay at a nearby hotel. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She snapped back to her senses. Huh? Hotel? He agreed? Yes, he agreed. Yi Huanyan's lips twitched. You brought up Gumin? No, he thinks that I'm ordering him to do something as Gumin's brother. It's just his own imagination. Gu Qi looked serious. This piqued Yi Huanyan's interest. What do you think of Song Xiaobo? Gu Qi frowned. Nothing much. So you don't agree with his relationship with Minmin? It's not that I don't agree, but someone like him won't be able to get Minmin. Yi Huanyan nodded and raised her hand to give him a thumbs up. You're good. Gu Qi always hit the nail on the head. His rationality, EQ, and logic were all full marks. A programmer with a one-track mind like Song Xiaobo would only have a negative fate in front of Gu Qi. That night, Yi Huanyan watched the edited trailer overnight. There were many parts that she was not satisfied with, so the entire post-production department edited it overnight. In the end, Yi Huanyan simply moved to the post-production department and watched them edit frame by frame. If there was anything that she was not satisfied with, she would point it out on the spot. By the time the edited trailer was ready, it was already dawn. Yi Huanyan picked up the coffee cup and took a sip, but did not drink anything. Only then did she realize that the cup was empty. Is this version okay, Mr. Gu? President Gu? The editor turned to look at Yi Huanyan. Let's do this version. Send it out for publicity. Thank you for your hard work. Everyone can rest now. The people in the editing department got up in 2s and 3s, yawned and stretched. They packed up and got ready to go home to accompany their wives and children. Soon, only Yi Huanyan was left. After returning to the office, she repeatedly watched the edited trailer many times until the sun rose outside. The morning light shone in through the curtains. Yi Huanyan yawned. After the effect of the coffee wore off, she finally felt a little sleepy. Suddenly, her cell phone rang and a text message popped up. It was from Ling Han. It's dawn outside. The sunrise is beautiful. Good morning. Yi Huanyan stared at her cell phone for a while. Out of the corner of her eye, she glanced at the invitation card on the corner of the table. She unlocked her cell phone, opened the contact list, and dialed the number. Xiao Yu, it's me. A confused voice came from the other end of the line. I know it's you. Oh my God, it's only 5:30. What are you doing? You haven't sent the invitation card to Ling Han yet, right? You only sent me one, right? Invitation card? What invitation card? The charity banquet. Are you stupid? I sent it. The sound of someone turning over came from the other end of the line. Yesterday afternoon, you had someone send it directly to the old mansion. No, you specifically called me because of this. How worried are you about Ling Han? Chapter 480. You gave it to me? Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise. Of course, Ji Xiaoya said impatiently. Of course I gave it to you. I had to give it to you because of our friendship. Otherwise, do you want me to make the headlines? I had such a good relationship with Pleasure Group before, but now that something has happened, I'm not involved. What kind of person am I? Fine, I'm just reminding you. Since you've given it to me, then forget it. Go to sleep. Before Ji Xiaoya could say anything, she quickly hung up the phone. Ji Xiaoya hadn't considered the fact that she had been worried about Ling Han's self-esteem because of his inconvenience all day. Regarding the banquet, what did Ling Han think about it? Yi Huanyan clutched her cell phone, and there was a worried look on her face. Since Ji Xiaoya gave him the invitation, he didn't take the initiative to tell her. Maybe he didn't want to go? Yi Huanyan guessed, but she couldn't be sure. Ling Han was a man with very strong self-esteem, and no one knew this better than her. However, he had always been proud and aloof, looking down on all living things. He had never been defeated before, and had never been in a difficult situation before. Thus, when he was in this kind of situation, she was even more at a loss than him. It was as if she had been used to his image as an omnipotent and powerful man for so many years. When he suddenly fell from the high platform, she was the first to feel uneasy. The next day, Yi Huanyan slept in the cubicle in the office until she woke up at noon. Gu Qi reported the response of the movie trailer in a document and put it on her desk. When he saw her coming out of the room, he looked up and greeted her. Did you sleep well? Why didn't you go upstairs to sleep? Yi Huanyan waved her hand and yawned. It's the same. This is the bed, and so is the bed upstairs. There's not much difference. Anyway, I have to get up so I can use work as an excuse to walk less. Gu Qi's eyebrows trembled, and he pretended to be calm. After the movie release is over, you can rest for a while. Leave the road show to your subordinates. Yi Huanyan nodded and rubbed her temples. She pointed at the 2 blue lunch boxes on the coffee table and asked, What are those? Gu Qi's eyes followed her movements and fell on the lunch boxes. He hesitated for a few seconds. Mr. Ling sent lunch here, half an hour ago. You didn't wake up, so he didn't ask the secretary to wake you up. Ling Han came. Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up, and she was suddenly not sleepy anymore. She completely ignored Gu Qi's explanation and asked excitedly, Why didn't he wait for me here? Why didn't anyone wake me up? Gu Qi looked at her and added, He said he was going to the import store to buy fruit for you, so he left in a hurry. Yi Huanyan nodded and muttered, My mother is so troublesome. There were 3 layers to Ling Han's insulated container. The top layer was braised pork, the second layer was stir-fried cabbage with oil residue, the third layer was white rice, and the last insulated container was filled with fish soup. It didn't taste like Aunt Zhang's cooking. She didn't know who made it. The fish soup wasn't hot enough, but it tasted okay. Yi Huanyan smacked her lips and looked up at Gu Qi. Have you eaten? Yes. Gu Qi nodded. About the male companion at the charity banquet. If you're not in a hurry, let's wait. Sun Yanhua should have received the invitation alone, so he will be there without you informing him. So, when the time comes, I can appear in the name of the crew or with someone else. It was still early, and there was still a week before the Fengshan charity banquet. She didn't want to take the initiative to mention this to Ling Han. She thought that if he wanted to go, he would probably mention it to her himself. Gu Qi understood what she meant and nodded. He didn't have any other opinions. He watched her eat and reported the promotion of the movie. Then, he mentioned the news from the Gu Corporation. If nothing goes wrong, the Gu Corporation will be able to temporarily remove the seizure and re-enter the market in 2 days. It's just that the Gu Corporation has suffered a heavy loss this time, so it's impossible to seek justice from the prosecutor's office. They can only admit that they're unlucky. It's already very lucky to have escaped death. How is the He family now? At the mention of the He family, a trace of contempt appeared in Gu Qi's eyes. If He Xiao hadn't been desperate enough to bribe Smith, we wouldn't have been able to get through this safely so easily. He is the United Nations Charity Ambassador, so his words have a lot of credibility. This time, he shot himself in the foot. He has spent all the credibility he has accumulated over half of his life. My father hasn't met with him yet, right? Sir wants to meet with him, but Yi Xiao is now locked up in the prosecutor's office. Sir can't even take care of himself, so young master stopped him. At this time, it's better not to bump into the teeth of the storm. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan nodded. That's true. Let's talk about it when the matter is completely settled. After all, because of such a ridiculous thing as the Gu Corporation being involved in a smuggling case, it was completely because Gu Duo was forced into a corner. Coincidentally, she met with Yi Xiao, a person who had been suppressing his evil intentions for many years, who wanted to exterminate the Gu family. Therefore, the two of them worked together and did such a shameless thing. First, they kidnapped Ling Han and delayed his return to China. Then, they tampered with the internal affairs of pleasure and hooked up with the Wen father and son, who had long coveted the position of CEO. Later, they kidnapped Gu Xinian and forced Ling Han to sign the equity transfer agreement. The equity transfer agreement probably had nothing to do with Gu Duo's plan. It was just a condition of exchange with the Wen father and son. He Xiao's purpose was to ruin Gu Heng's reputation and the business empire he had worked so hard to build over the years. He would leave him with nothing and conveniently swallow up the Gu Corporation. He would use this to prove to Wen Yi that she had chosen the wrong person. Gu Duo's purpose was much simpler. She only wanted Gu Xinian. In Yi Huanyan's eyes, this plan was full of loopholes. If it had been Gu Duo alone, it would have been impossible to accomplish. However, Yi Xiao was very capable and made connections with the higher-ups. He threw the blame on Gu Ming for no reason and allowed him to enter the prosecutor's office. If they had followed their original plan and things continued to develop like this, the wrongful case might have been wrongly judged in the end. However, the people they kidnapped successfully escaped one after another and turned the situation around. The biggest loophole should be that Yi Xiao let his own son eavesdrop on the night before the villa was sealed off. Thinking of this, Yi Huanyan looked up and asked, "By the way, how is Xiaochuan?" After the incident at Manhattan Beach, Xiaochuan had not contacted her again. I heard that after Yi Xiao was detained by the prosecutor's office, he asked for a meeting, but Yi Xiao refused. Yi Xiao should know that Yi Xiao did these things behind his back, so the relationship between them is very stiff now. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's expression became complicated. Chapter 481. Oh right, about the variety show A Weekend Date. The publicity department thinks that it's a good idea to bring a newcomer to the show. If Chun-Een isn't busy, you can bring her to the show to increase her exposure. She hasn't appeared in front of the public for a long time. It's not an exaggeration to say that she's been shelved. Gucci's words pulled Yi Huanyan back to reality. She nodded. Okay, I'll ask her tonight. Chun-Een was in Haiyan Media in name, but her activities were not restricted by the company. Ever since she signed the contract, she had been following Yi Huanyan around. Originally, the company had planned for her and she had gotten the second female lead in a web drama. However, 2 months ago, for some reason, she refused to work no matter what, saying that she wanted to nurse her body and mind. Yi Huanyan could more or less tell that it was a relationship problem. After several interactions with Chu Tianqua, Yi Huanyan felt that the man was like a child who never grew up. Dating Chun-Een was like playing house. He didn't even know what the future would be like. He only knew how to play around every day. However, no matter how playful Chun-Een was, she was a woman after all. When a woman reached a certain age, she would start to yearn for stability. "You're not staying in the company tonight?" Gu Qi asked. "A friend is coming back, so I'm welcoming him." Yi Huanyan's eyes had a hint of meaning. At Lanjiang City International Airport, night had just fallen. The flight from the United States had just landed in the airport hall. A woman wearing a caramel-colored trendy woolen coat pulled a silver-gray suitcase out of the exit. Her 10-centimeter tall boots set off her tall and straight figure. Under the huge sunglasses was a delicate and classical face. She turned on her phone as she walked and asked, "Actually, you didn't have to go through so much trouble to pick me up. I can just take a taxi myself. There aren't many taxis here at night, but you're unlucky. It's rush hour and I'm stuck on the road. You can take a look first. If you could take a taxi, you can take one first. Sure, I can do anything. Hey, wait a minute. The voice on the other end of the phone sounded a little anxious. It's okay to share a car with someone. There are very few cars going to the suburbs over there. If the driver says to share a car to the suburbs, you have to quickly get in the car. Fu Xiang answered helplessly. She hung up the phone and pulled her suitcase to the taxi stand. Just as Yi Huanyan had said, the people who had just gotten off the plane were all queuing up. Those who were lucky had arrived early and had already left by taxis. There were only a few taxis behind them. Every time a taxi came to the front, the driver would shout for it. Are we going to the city center? There are 3 of us. Fu Xiang looked at the endless line of people in front of her. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. If he had known earlier, he would have arranged for someone to pick him up at the airport. Gambling was banned in the country, and the Fu family's main business was running casinos. They did not have any business in the country, so it was not very convenient for them to do anything here. Just as she was bored out of her mind, she suddenly heard a loud voice shouting, "Near Yongxiang Road in the western suburbs, is anyone carpooling? We're short of 2. Fu Xiang was slightly stunned. She remembered Yi Huanyan's reminder over the phone and hurriedly raised her hand. Here, master. The entrance of the taxi stand was crowded with people. Fu Xiang pulled her suitcase, and there was a metal fence between her and the taxi. She frowned and lowered her head. Just as she was about to carry her suitcase and climb over, she heard a clear voice. Let me do it. She raised her head in surprise. The first thing she saw was the hood on the back of the black trench coat. Then she saw half of the man's neck as he bent over. His skin was slightly pale, but he still had the characteristics of an Asian. There was a refreshing smell of detergent on his body, and there was a youthful vitality. While she was in a daze, the man had already carried her suitcase and climbed over the metal fence. The man stood on the other side of the fence and looked up at her. He stretched out his hand and smiled. Do you need help? When he bent over just now, she didn't look carefully and thought that he was a middle-aged man with such a calm demeanor. Now that he stood up straight, she could see his youthful aura through the metal fence. He looked to be in his early 20s. He was wearing a black down jacket with a dark blue V-neck sweater inside. The collar of his white shirt was exposed. He looked to be more than 185 meters tall. He was young, but he didn't lose his composure. There were the sounds of girls whispering around them. He's so handsome. The driver is waiting. I'll pull you over, sister. Fu Xiang was slightly stunned when she heard him call her sister. She took his hand and felt the strength in his arm the moment they climbed over the fence. Then he steadily held her shoulders and landed on the ground. It had been many years since she had been so close to a man. This feeling made her feel a little strange. The man first stuffed her luggage into the trunk, then opened the car door and waited at the door like a gentleman. Thank you. She walked past him and said softly, You're welcome. Just as he got into the car, his phone rang. Fu Xiang looked at the man apologetically. He smiled and took off the earphones around his neck. He waved them at her and then put them on. Fu Xiang also had earphones, and the soundproofing was quite good. The call was from Yi Huanyan. They were still stuck on the highway. As soon as the call connected, a hurried voice came from the other end. Are you in the car? I don't know how long the traffic is going to be here. I'm in the car. I'm about to leave. Then if I can get off the highway in front, I'll get off directly. You know where the car is, right? I know. The person who's carpooling with me is also going that way. It's the same place. What a coincidence. Yeah. Didn't I say that there's no traffic in front? It should be a green light. The call was hurriedly hung up. Fu Xiang shook her head helplessly and put the phone back on the main screen. She opened the LinkWatch app and started to silently delete one by one. She had been using this app to kill time for so many years. The man next to her was not far from her. Winter clothes were worn a lot, and it made people feel safe. The material of her coat at the elbow brushed against the man's down jacket from time to time as she scrolled through the app. The heater in the car was very strong. After a while, the man next to her took off his earphones and took off his down jacket. He folded it at his waist and placed it on his lap. Fu Yingxiang was not hot, but her eyes were a little blurry. She couldn't see anything when she scrolled to the last level. Every time, it would be a countdown of 5 seconds, and she would fail and start over again. It was probably the same this time. She sighed. His slender and clean fingers suddenly blocked the phone and tapped on it twice. With a bayou sound, the 2 teddy bears on the diagonal line disappeared in a single line. Then, a series of clicks occurred at an even faster speed. He didn't even have time to take a closer look. Within 5 seconds, the colorful animals on the phone screen had completely disappeared. The words "Congratulations on clearing the game" flashed on the screen, accompanied by the special effects of scattering flowers. Although it was clumsy, it was delightful. Chapter 482. Fu Yingxiang stared blankly at the scene in front of her. She looked up in surprise and saw the man looking at her apologetically. "Sorry, I have a bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder." Fu Yingxiang smiled and put away her phone. "How did you do it?" "I can't get past the last stage every time." "If you really want to, you can get past it. You're an idealist, aren't you?" Sincerity leads to success, Oriental metaphysics. The man blinked and revealed a playful expression. Seeing this expression, Fu Yingxiang felt that this man did indeed look like him. He was a standard young man in his early 20s, youthful and quick-witted. She suddenly felt that she was incompatible with this young man from head to toe. She clenched her fingers and leaned against the back of the chair. She turned her head to look out the window on the other side. The neon lights outside the window were shining brightly, decorating the entire Lanjiang city even more than it was during the day. Fu Yingxiang had seen a lot of the bustling world. She was born in a money-squandering brothel and was used to seeing these luxurious scenes, so she was not fascinated by them. No matter how she thought about it, she was already 40 years old. Thanks to her father, she had lived like a princess until she was in her 30s. In this life, other than the incident 6 years ago, she could be considered to have lived a smooth life. What else was there to hope for? "Do you want to eat candy?" A clear voice suddenly sounded beside her. It was the same voice that one would suddenly hear when standing in front of the iron fence. It caught her off guard, but it was so clean and clear that she could not raise her guard at all. At this moment, the pair of eyes looking at her were like those of a fawn, twinkling like stars. She did not know if it was because of the high temperature of the air conditioner, but Fu Yingxiang felt that this was an inexplicably warm question. She was stunned. Her gaze fell on the lollipop between his slender fingers. "A child gave it to me on the plane. I don't like to eat sweet things. Girls should like it very much." "Girls?" Fu Yingxiang repeated in a surprised tone. The young man paused in his action of holding the lollipop, seemingly hesitant. "You don't like it?" Fu Yingxiang's expression froze. She lowered her head and took the lollipop. "No, I like it. Thank you." This young man seemed to have gotten the main point wrong. Fu Yingxiang only felt his old face become a little hot. For a person in his 40s to be called a girl was a little difficult to say, and he also couldn't bear it. Were all children so seductive these days? Just as her thoughts were running wild, the young man suddenly said, "Let me help you peel it." Fu Yingxiang was stunned. She followed his gaze and looked at her hand. She didn't know when the wrapper of the lollipop had been messed up by her. She quickly unwrapped the candy wrapper and said embarrassedly, "No, I can peel it off." The candy wrapper was peeled off, but Fu Yingxiang felt that it was a little strange for a 40-year-old man to eat a lollipop in front of a 20-year-old man. She held the lollipop and stared at it for a few seconds. Just as she was feeling awkward, her phone suddenly rang again. "Hello? Sister 4, where are you?" "I'm at." Fu Yingxiang looked out of the window. "I'm not too sure. This place is Jiangjia Alley." The young man's voice came from beside her. Fu Yingxiang's heart tightened. She thanked him with her eyes. That's Zhangja Alley. Oh, Zhangja Alley. Hey, you even know this? Isn't this your first time here? Oh, hey? I just heard someone beside you talking. A man? You're carpooling with a man? Fu Yingxiang paused for a few seconds and replied, Yeah. Then don't hang up. It's too late, and it's not safe. I'll keep talking to you. When we reach the place, I'll wait for you at the entrance. Okay. She couldn't wait for Yi Huanyan to keep talking to her. It was indeed a little difficult for her to stuff the lollipop into her mouth. The phone call was a very good excuse. The old mansion is a little remote, but don't worry, the facilities are pretty good, and the heating is good too. Ling Han told me before that they just changed the floor heating 3 years ago, so it's very warm. I remember that you're afraid of the cold. Yi Huanyan's nagging came from the other end of the phone. Fu Yingxiang knew that she was someone who wasn't used to awkward silences. She always hoped that there would be some movement in her environment, so she could understand why she was rambling. Yeah, Lanjiang is colder than Los Angeles, but fortunately, I got on the bus after leaving the airport, so I didn't feel anything. Yi Huanyan went directly to the suburbs after getting off the highway. The distance between the airport and the suburbs was a little further, so after she passed the rush hour traffic jam, she arrived at the old mansion before Fu Yingxiang. After parking the car, she didn't knock on the door. She stood at the door and stomped her feet, blowing cold air into the phone. I think it's going to snow. Really? Fu Yingxiang looked out of the window. I brought thick clothes. I won't be here for long, so it shouldn't be too cold. Put on your gloves before you get off the car. You took a long time to heal your hands. You're going to freeze them. It's just a pair of hands. Why are they so fragile? How can they freeze just like that? Fu Yingxiang laughed. 6 years ago, when she was in the 4th prison, she had to wash clothes in the winter, and her hands were full of frostbite. After that, Gusinian sent someone to pick her up for a long time and used countless expensive hand care products to treat her hands. Where are you? Where are we? Fu Yingxiang had already turned to look at the young man beside her. Bluestone Alley. The young man glanced out of the window. I'm almost there. The man beside you is quite familiar with this place. Yi Huanyan obviously heard his voice. Anyway, he's more familiar with this place than me. Wait for me at the door. Yes, I'm here. Hey, I think I saw your car. Fu Yingxiang raised her head and looked out of the windshield. The young man's clear voice sounded beside her. I'm almost there. Here, take this. She was stunned and turned to look at him. A pair of beautiful, thin hands were holding a pair of black cashmere gloves. He placed it beside her. I just bought it before I boarded the plane. I haven't used it yet, so don't worry about it. Before she could respond, the young man put on his down jacket and said to the driver in a muffled voice, Driver, just stop by the roadside. I'm here. Yi Huanyan's voice came from the phone. Hey, Sister 4, did you stop by the roadside? Fu Yingxiang snapped back to her senses and replied blankly, Yes, yes, get out of the car. As soon as he finished speaking, the call was hung up. Fu Yingxiang stared at the gloves beside her for a few seconds. She was still holding the lollipop in one hand. The young man had already gotten out of the car, and the cold wind blew in. She shivered and quickly put the lollipop in her mouth. Then she put on the gloves and took the lollipop out of her mouth through the gloves. Her other hand was busy reaching for her wallet. Driver, I'm getting out of the car here too. Okay, 150 yuan in total. Here, keep the change. Chapter 483. Fu Yingxiang got out of the car. The young man was busy moving the luggage in the trunk and didn't seem to notice her. Sister 4. A cry of surprise came from the night sky. A black figure jumped over from afar and laughed. Sister 4, it's snowing. It's snowing. Did you see? Fu Yingxiang sniffed and turned to look at Yi Huanyan. Many people like snow. A heavy snow seemed to be able to cleanse the entire world. Yi Huanyan looked at her with both hands holding the snow. She was smiling when her smile suddenly turned into astonishment. She fell behind her in a daze. Sister Yan Yan, long time no see. Fu Xiang had heard this clear voice more than once along the way. She was sure that it was that young man. Sister Yan Yan? They knew each other? Yi Huanyan stared at the young man behind Fu Xiang with wide eyes. After a long time, she finally recognized him. Ling Zhan? He hadn't seen Ling Zhan for a long time. It had been almost 7 years. He came back once when old Madam died of illness. That was also the last time they saw each other. Ling Zhan had changed a lot. He was taller and more muscular. He was a man, not a boy. Yi Huanyan was overjoyed and introduced him to Fu Xiang. This is Ling Zhan, the eldest son of Ling Han's second uncle. Why did you come in the same car? As she spoke, Yi Huanyan looked suspiciously at the lollipop in Fu Xiang's hand. Fu Xiang returned to her senses and hurriedly hid the lollipop behind her back. It's a coincidence. I'm not sure what's going on either, Ling Zhan smiled. It's really a coincidence. Let's go in. We'll talk inside. Yi Huanyan hurried forward to help with the luggage. Fu Xiang held the lollipop in one hand. She didn't know whether to throw it away or keep it. She felt extremely awkward and could only let Ling Zhan and Yi Huanyan help to pull the luggage into the house. The old house was a big house, and everyone lived in the backyard. Yi Huanyan obviously didn't know that Ling Zhan was coming back. As soon as she entered the backyard, she shouted, Ling Han, look who's here." A groan came from the room, followed by Wen Yi's displeased scolding. "I told you not to move. You're the one who's suffering." Yi Huanyan stepped into the room, and the warm air hit her face. Ling Han was lying on the chaise lounge in the side hall. One of his trousers was rolled up high, and there were needles everywhere. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I just learned some acupuncture. Let him try it." "New acupuncture?" Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. For a moment, she forgot her purpose and hurried forward. "How dare you experiment on a living person when you just learned it?" Wen Yi glanced at her with a careless expression. He was doing well at first, but when you came in so suddenly, he moved and just pricked the wrong acupoint. He probably won't be able to move for the next 2 days. "Mom!" Yan Yan, Ling Han's voice interrupted Yi Huanyan's dissatisfaction. "What were you talking to me about?" Hearing this, Yi Huanyan finally remembered the 2 people standing outside the door. She hurriedly lifted the curtain and waved. "Come in quickly." The first to enter was Fu Xiang. Wen Yi was very happy to see Fu Xiang. She hurriedly got up and greeted her. "Xiaoying, it's good that you're here. I've been looking forward to seeing you here. Stay with me for a few more days. None of these little brats are willing to accompany an old woman like me." Following closely behind was Ling Zhan. When Ling Han saw Ling Zhan, his expression froze and his brows furrowed. He couldn't tell whether he was happy or unhappy. Ling Zhan raised her eyebrows and tilted her head to look at Ling Han, who was sprawled on the chaise lounge, unable to move. "Cousin, you don't seem to be very happy to see me." Ling Han's brows furrowed even deeper. He didn't know if there was really something wrong with the acupoint that Wen Yi had pierced for him. After a long time, half of his body gradually became numb. At this moment, he couldn't move. He couldn't help but want to show a little enthusiasm. "Don't blame him." Wen Yi interrupted. "He wants to, but he can't get up." It was rare for Wen Yi to speak up for Ling Han. Yi Huanyan looked at her in surprise. "Who is this?" "My mother." "Hello, Auntie." "And you're Ling Han's cousin? You're Mr. Ling Dongyu's son, right?" Wen Yi pulled Fu Xiang to sit at the tea table and turned to greet Ling Zhan. She looked like the hostess, as if she had forgotten that in this place, Ling Zhan was actually more of a host. "I haven't had the chance to express my gratitude to your father in person for helping us when he was abroad. I'm really grateful to your father for helping Gu Corporation clear its name." Even her words of gratitude were said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Yi Huanyan held her forehead. She felt that in this world, there might not be a more unreasonable woman than her own mother. Ling Zhan's expression didn't change. She said lightly, "My father didn't do much." "Auntie, you don't have to take it to heart. If there's anything else you need help with, just tell me. It's more convenient for me to tell my father directly. Is that so? Of course. My father asked me to come back to the country to see if there's anything I can help with. After all, when Sister Yen Yen was in the Ling family, she had a good relationship with my family. We don't see each other many times a year, but we get along very well. Especially my mother and Sister Yen Yen, they get along very well. I heard Yen Yen mention this before. Your mother is Chris, right? Seeing that Ling Zhan and Wen Yi were chatting happily, and Fu Yingxiang was accompanying them, they talked about some coincidences that happened at the airport. The three of them chatted happily. Yi Huanyan was not in the mood to interrupt. She simply walked to Ling Han's side. Ling Zhan is here. I haven't seen you in years, but you become more and more likable. Ling Han was lying on the chaise lounge, so his vision was limited. He could not see how happy the three of them were, but from the content of their conversation, he sensed a hint of danger. Yen Yen, help me pull out the needle and thread on my leg. Can this be pulled out? Yes. Ling Han nodded. Yi Huanyan turned around and looked at Wen Yi. Mom, can these needles be pulled out? Yes, Wen Yi replied perfunctorily. She did not even raise her head. Yi Huanyan reached out to pull out the needle. Before she could touch it, she heard Wen Yi say, unless you want his other leg to be paralyzed as well. She was so frightened that her hand trembled, and she almost dropped the needle. It's better not to pull it out. Yi Huanyan carefully retracted her hand and comforted her. My mom used to study Chinese medicine. Although she may be using you as a test subject, I can't make trouble for her. Ling Han frowned. He glanced at Ling Zhan's back from the corner of his eye and faintly felt uneasy. This rascal had some thoughts about Yi Huanyan since he was young. At that time, he was still a little kitten and could not do anything about it. Now that Ling Zhan had come back to help the Gu Corporation, he did not know whether he wanted to take advantage of the situation or to take advantage of it. In the evening, Yi Huanyan had just sent Ling Han back to his room. The two of them had just spoken a few words when Wen Yi knocked on the door. Yen Yen, Xiao Ying is sleeping in your room. Come over early and talk to her. Since returning to the Gu mansion, Yi Huanyan and Ling Han had been sleeping in separate rooms. Wen Yi had come up with a bunch of folk remedies that could help treat Ling Han's leg. One of them was for the couple to sleep in separate rooms. Chapter 484. Whether Wen Yi's treatment method had any scientific basis was still debatable. Yi Huanyan had originally planned to ignore her and let her do whatever she wanted. However, on the night of the treatment, just as they entered the room, Wen Yi knocked on the door. I've prepared a room for you. It's right next to yours and mine. After that, it was endless treatment and separation. It said that when it comes to marriage, it's the father who can't bear to part with his daughter. Why is my family's responsibility all on my mother? Yi Huanyan frowned and turned to look at Ling Han. Do you think my mother will rush in if I ignore her like this? She won't. Ling Han shook his head. But it's very likely that your mother will prick me until I can't get up during tomorrow's acupuncture session. Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. She sighed and got off the bed. Then forget it. For the sake of the future, bear with it. Ling Han smiled. He leaned against the bed and held her hand. He pulled her to his chest and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. Everything will be fine. Yi Huanyan nodded. Yes, everything will be fine. When Yi Huanyan left the room, she saw Wen Yi walking past her with a bamboo basket in her hand. What's this? Don't move. Wen Yi slapped her hand away. It's biting you. It's biting. Yi Huanyan exclaimed. Mom, what are you doing? It's late. Go to bed. Yi Huanyan wanted to follow her in, but Wen Yi had already closed the door. She pushed, but to no avail. The door was locked from the inside. Not long after, a muffled groan came from inside. Yi Huanyan shouted anxiously, Ling Han, are you okay? She was met with silence in the room. She quickly knocked on the door. Finally, Ling Han's voice came from inside the room. I'm fine. It didn't sound like he was fine. Yi Huanyan was about to continue pounding on the door when she was interrupted by a voice behind her. Sister Yan Yan. When he turned around, he saw Ling Zhan standing behind him. She was wearing a thick nightgown, but in this snowy weather, she still looked thin, standing in the corridor. Oh my God, aren't you afraid of catching a cold by running out like this? Yi Huanyan urged him. Hurry up and go inside. I'm not cold. I feel cold just by looking at you. Yi Huanyan pushed him and looked back at the door with some hesitation. In the end, she gritted her teeth, steeled her heart, and pushed Ling Zhan into the opposite room. Sister Yan Yan, have a seat. I'll get you a cup of hot chocolate. There weren't any bottles or jars in this room, so it was obvious that they were brought in by Ling Zhan's personal luggage. Yi Huanyan looked around and saw a small microwave heater. She asked curiously, You only brought a box with these coffee machines in it. Where's your luggage? My luggage was sent back. It should arrive tomorrow. This time, there were a lot of things, so I couldn't bring them back myself. Ling Zhan's back was facing Yi Huanyan as she busied herself in front of the heater. The smell of hot chocolate wafted through the room. How long do you plan to stay this time? Will your dad and the others come back for the new year? And Ling Li and Ling Shui? I haven't seen them in a long time. I plan to tidy up West Court. Ling Zhan's back paused slightly. She asked hesitantly, Do you think it'll be faster to get a few people to help tidy up West Court? Yi Huanyan was stunned. Aren't you used to living here? West Court has been abandoned for a long time. It's pretty good here. It's just that it's a little troublesome to stay here for a long time. Why would it be troublesome? Yi Huanyan smiled nonchalantly. It's pretty good to eat and chat together. Do you think it's troublesome to have an extra pair of chopsticks? I plan to come back and stay for a long time. Ling Zhan suddenly interrupted Yi Huanyan. Stay for a long time? I don't plan to leave. What do you mean? There's an academic conference in China. After attending it, I'll decide whether to stay in China to do research. If I want to do research, it'll take a long time. So you're saying that from now on, you'll be living in West Court? Yi Huanyan finally reacted. Ling Zhan turned around and looked at Yi Huanyan seriously. Sister Yan Yan, don't you want me to come back? Yi Huanyan's expression froze. No, that's not what I meant. Of course it's good that you're back. I'm just thinking that West Court is so big that it'll take a lot of effort to tidy it up. I don't feel safe letting the housekeeping company outside do the cleaning. Many of the things in there are antiques. If one of them breaks, it'll be a disservice to the ancestors. That's why I'm worried. Ling Zhan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. It's fine. I'm going to put the antiques in the storage room tomorrow. In the future, I'll just decorate the place with normal things. Okay, my fourth sister should be able to help tomorrow. Yi Huanyan smiled. I heard that she majored in the study of treasures in university. She's very knowledgeable about how to collect these things. Fourth sister? Ling Zhan hesitated for a few seconds. It's Sister Yingxiang. Why do you call her fourth sister? Well, we were the ones who were monitoring. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and suddenly stopped talking. After a while, she said, It's just a group of close sisters calling each other that. It's nothing. Ling Han didn't ask any more questions. He sprinkled crushed peanuts on top of the chocolate and brought it to Yi Huanyan. The chocolate is ready. Try it. Yi Huanyan sniffed. It smells good. Ling Han sat across from the coffee table and drank water. The dense steam blurred his vision, but he could clearly see Yi Huanyan's previous appearance through the blurriness. By the way, I haven't asked you yet. How did you recognize me at a glance at the door? I'm not the same as before. You're the same as before. Ling Zhan's answer was unexpected. Yi Huanyan put down the chocolate cup and raised her eyebrows. Are you trying to fool me again? Ling Han didn't recognize me the first time we met. I'm different from him. Ling Zhan lowered his head and hid his gaze. He said lightly, Some people should be recognized at a glance, no matter what they look like. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. At this time, a certain someone who was enduring great suffering had cold sweat on his face. He looked up at the ceiling and clenched the sheets under him. Blue veins popped out on his forehead as he tried to suppress the muffled groan coming out of his mouth. If it's really painful, you can't shout. When he sat at the side, quietly looking at the masterpiece on his legs, a blue and white python was coiling around the base of Ling Han's thighs, sticking out its red tongue as it contracted its body with all its might, as if it wanted to crush him. Because if you shout, Yan Yan will definitely come in. If she sees me treating you like this, she won't agree to continue. Your last 1% of hope will be gone. I know. He panted heavily and tried to stay calm as he responded to Wen-yi. You're quite brave. You can still talk in this situation. Wen-yi looked at him with appreciation. Chapter 485. The next day, when Yi Huanyan woke up and saw the snow outside the window, she exclaimed excitedly and jumped out of bed. Fu Yingxiang shivered and shrunk under the blankets. She said in a muffled voice, Yan Yan, please be considerate of the elderly. I can't stand you tormenting me like this. I'm sorry, Sister Four. Yi Huanyan hurriedly tucked her in and smiled. I'm going out to build a snowman. Do you want to come? No. In the past, whenever it snowed during the Lunar New Year, Ling Zhan and I would go out to build a snowman. Before Fu Yingxiang could say no, she was interrupted by Yi Huanyan. When she heard the two words Ling Zhan, her heart clenched for no reason. She hesitated for a moment, then unexpectedly nodded her head. Then let's go. Put on more clothes. I'm going out first. Yi Huanyan put on her clothes very quickly. After putting on the down jacket and snow boots, she practically rushed out. She was so happy that it was as if she had returned to 10 years ago. In the courtyard outside was a snowman that was about to take shape. Ling Zhan was wearing a black down jacket and half squatting in the snow. He was adding snow to the snowman's body and wearing his headphones. He was so engrossed in music that he did not notice what was happening in the courtyard behind him. Yi Huanyan quietly walked behind him. She held a tightly clenched snowball in her hand. She pulled the collar of the snowman's neck and threw it in. Ah! A scream rang out in the courtyard. Yi Huanyan had already jumped out a few steps while laughing. The screams and laughter were enough to wake up all the people living in the yard. Gu Ming opened the door, squatted down with a teacup, and looked at Yi Huanyan with a smile. You should ask your brother to join in the snowball fight. Yi Huanyan stepped back. Ling Zhan was still shaking off the snowball on his back. He looked embarrassed and said unhappily, Sister Yan Yan, I used to help you in the snowball fight. You're betraying me now. Yi Huanyan smiled as he stepped back. It's not a betrayal. It's just that we're the only ones in this courtyard who can fight. That's why we're on different sides. You said it yourself. Ling Zhan squatted down. He lifted the snowball that was originally a snowman's head and ran towards Yi Huanyan. Ah! Yi Huanyan cried out in alarm. In a moment of desperation, he grabbed Fu Yingxiang and used her as a shield. He dodged left and right behind her. Ling Zhan was too embarrassed to play around with Fu Yingxiang. He attacked left and right several times, but failed. Just as he was in a daze, a hand suddenly slapped the snowball that he was holding in the air towards his own face. Bah, bah, bah. The big snowball was cold to the touch. His face was almost numb from the cold. Ling Zhan stared blankly at Fu Yingxiang's hand, which was still in front of him. He looked at her astonished face and the pale explanation that came out of her mouth. That's a conditioned reflex. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. The moment Ling Zhan caught the big snowball and threw it at him, he jumped away in alarm. Oh my God, what are you doing? Fourth sister hit you. Why are you chasing after me? Sister Yan Yan, this is your fault. If you hadn't dodged, how could I not dodge when you hit me? Little Ling Zhan, if you continue like this, I won't hold back anymore. You don't have to hold back, Sister Yan Yan. The courtyard was filled with flying snowballs and laughter. Fu Yingxiang put her hands, which were red from the cold, into her pockets. She leaned against the door frame and watched the two people chasing each other in the courtyard. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth turned up, revealing a warm smile. Later, Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoya also got up. The couple also split into two groups. Gu Xinian helped Ling Zhan, while Ji Xiaoya helped Yi Huanyan. The two of them played a snowball fight for a while. This won't do. We're at a disadvantage. Yi Huanyan spat out the snowball in his mouth. He found a rockery and squatted behind it. He shouted unhappily, "Brother, can you wear a hat? Your hair is too similar to snow." We're at a disadvantage. Gu Xinian, of course, ignored him. He even confidently replied, "You can dye your hair. Don't bother with him. Your brother is just shameless." Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she slapped her thigh. "Just you wait." After saying that, she strolled away along the wall, leaving Yi Huanyan alone behind the rockery. He didn't dare to come out to court death, but he felt terrible squatting there until his feet went numb. 5 minutes later, Ji Xiaoya ran back with Chen. The moment Yi Huanyan saw Chen, he knew that they were going to turn the tide of the battle this morning. Chen was quite agile. The moment she joined the battle, she threw 3 large snowballs at the enemy's neckline. The cold caused the enemy to scream in fear. It's useless no matter how stealthy we are. We're cheating. Ji Xiaoya laughed as she sent snowballs to Chen. She didn't expect a snowball to fly straight at her and hit her in the mouth. "Puft, put, 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 put. Gu Xinian, your grandpa. My grandpa is also your grandpa now. F***CKU. I'm going to fight it out with you." The battle ended with Ji Xiaoya pouncing on the enemy's main force in the snow and giving them a good beating. Yi Huanyan's face was red from the cold. He smiled as he looked around the messy courtyard. When he glanced at the room opposite, he paused for a moment. Ling Han was standing at the window. He opened a small gap and was looking at them. Many years ago, although he was a serious person, he would still come out and participate in the snowball fights in the courtyard. It was because of his legs. Yi Huanyan frowned. He paused in his steps and didn't go over in the end. "You're all up. Let's go to the main hall for breakfast." Aunt Zhang's voice ended the snowball fight in the morning. Yi Huanyan sniffed. "I'm not eating. I won't be able to make it in time for work. I'll change and leave." "All right." She turned around and grabbed Chen. "If you don't have anything to do, come with me to the show tonight. You haven't appeared in public for a long time. Even if you signed with the company because of nepotism, you can't do this." Chen knew that she was in the wrong. She had a guilty look on her face. She knew that she couldn't avoid it now, so she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go. If you dare to stand me up, I'll teach you a lesson." "I said I'll go. Sister Yan, I'll definitely go." Chen lowered her head and kicked at the snow with her sneakers. She muttered, "Anyway, I won't see that bastard on the show." "Bastard?" Yi Huanyan glanced at her and held the door. "You've been calling Chu Qianhua a bastard for 2 months. If you can't let it go, you can't. What's there to be reserved about? Hey, where are you going? Change and get in the car with me. We'll go straight to the company." "Coming." With her back to Yi Huanyan, Chen waved her hand as she walked and said confidently, "You can change first. I'll change too." While the two of them were talking, Andy Zhang had just brought in the food box from the opposite room. She looked worriedly at Ling Han, who was standing by the window, and said, "Madame Gu said that you won't be leaving the house for a period of time. Is that true?" Chapter 486. Ling Han nodded slightly, his expression calm. "Yes, and Gu asked me to stay in the room. The temperature has dropped during this period of time, and it's too cold outside. It's not good for treatment." Aunt Zhang looked worried. "Is Madame Gu's acupuncture treatment really effective? I keep feeling that young master's complexion is getting worse after such a long period of treatment." Ling Han retracted his gaze from the window and did not say a word. He did not know if it was effective or not. He was not even sure if Yi Huanyan's mother really knew acupuncture treatment. At this point, there was not much he could do. It was rare for her to have good intentions, so he just had to accept it. There was an invitation on the desk. Ji Xiaoya had asked someone to deliver it 2 days ago. When it was delivered, it came with a sentence. It's my business whether to send the invitation or not, but it's your business whether you want to accompany Yan Yan to the banquet. The choice is yours. The sound of the door opening came from the courtyard. Xiao Wu, have you changed your clothes? Let's go. I'm going to be late for work. Chun Yin ran out in a hurry. What's the rush, sister? You're a big boss. It's fine if you're late. Who dares to say anything? The sound of footsteps at the door was getting closer and closer. The sound of knocking on the glass pulled Ling Han back from his thoughts. Han, I'm leaving. It was Yi Huanyan's voice. Ling Han responded, Okay, be careful on the road. The sound of footsteps at the door gradually faded away, and when Yi's voice came from outside. Yan Yan, who are you going to Xiaoyu's magazine banquet with in 2 days? Do you need a male companion? Oh, let's talk about that later. I think Ling Zhan is fine. If there's no one, let him accompany you. I'm going to be late for work. Mom, I'm leaving first. Ling Han's eyes tightened a little. He stared blankly out the window and clenched his fingers. The sound of a car starting came from the outside of the old house. Then, when he pushed open the door, and a cold wind blew in, Aunt Zhang glanced at Ling Han and left the room. Come on, let's start today's acupuncture. When Yi rolled up her sleeves with a calm expression. Aunt Gu, is your acupuncture really effective? You suspect me? Auntie, that's not what I meant. Ling Han frowned. I just want to know how long it will take. The shortest would be 3 to 5 years, and the fastest would be half a year. You have to know that Chinese medicine has always been effective, but the effect is slow. But I can't wait that long. When Yi was fiddling with the acupuncture box, when she heard his words, she glanced at him with a knowing look and sneered. What? Why are you in such a hurry? The company is gone, so there's nothing for you to do, right? Yan Yan is waiting for me to attend Feng Shang's charity banquet with her. How do you know that Yan Yan is waiting for you? When Yi's face was full of contempt. He's just a male companion. It doesn't matter who she goes with. I think your cousin Ajan is quite good. Ling Han's face tightened, but he didn't say a word. Actually, it's not like there's no way. Ling Han abruptly raised his head and looked at Wen Yi. Wen Yi did not look at him. She was disinfecting the needle in her hand with an alcohol lamp. She slowly said, There's a kind of medicine in Chinese medicine that stimulates the nerves called Shirsan, Shirsan, and Shirsan. Have you heard of it? A little while after acupuncture, it can ensure that you can move normally for a short period of time. This is the origin of the name of this medicine. Really? Ling Han's eyes lit up. Don't be happy too early. I said it's for a short period of time. Wen Yi glanced at him. This medicine has a lot of side effects, especially when it's used in the way of acupuncture. It's very damaging to the body. If you want to use it, once you use it, it will delay the time when your legs can really walk for at least half a year. Do you still need to use it? Wen Yi looked at him. Haiyan Media's conference room. It was rare for the main production team of Remaining Life to gather together, except for Guanai. They sat together in a meeting to discuss the pre-screening in a few days. Gucci wore a pair of very refined gold-rimmed glasses and stood in front of the slide screen with a serious expression. The first batch of pre-screening this time is at Jinling Studios. So far, all the tickets for the pre-screening have been reserved. Our plan is to make Sun Yanhua appear at the scene after the screening. This way, the audience won't be affected during the screening, and we can get more honest feedback. After looking around, Gucci's eyes fell on Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan nodded. Let's do as you say. I have no objections. During the pre-screening process, the cinema will film the audience's reaction throughout the entire process, so that we can promote the second stage. While Gucci was talking about the promotion of the movie, Yi Huanyan kept her head down. She took out her phone and looked at it to see if she should agree with Gucci. If Gucci hadn't forced her to come to this meeting, she wouldn't have wanted to participate in it at all. She was only interested in making movies and writing scripts. What was the point of forcing her to do post-production work? Finally, the meeting came to an end. Gucci put a stack of documents on Yi Huanyan's table and looked back at Chen. This is for the TV show tonight. You better read it carefully before you go. Don't make any mistakes. Chen was eating an apple when she glared at him unhappily. What do you mean by don't make any mistakes? I'm just a supporting actress. It's good enough that I can say a few words. Who knows? Maybe the words I say will be edited out. Instead of worrying about me, you should worry about other people. Other people. Her words made Gucci frown. He ignored Chen and looked directly at Yi Huanyan. Are you really letting Shang Anren go on this show? She has always been on bad terms with Guan Nai. This time, Guan Nai didn't go, but she did. Aren't you worried about what she will say? It can't be helped even if she says anything. Guan Nai ran back to Iceland after filming. We can't possibly lose the female lead during the promotion period, and even the second female lead, right? Between Guan Nai and Shang Anren, who do you think is better to invite to help with the promotion? Gucci was silent for a few seconds before he nodded. He kind of understood what Yi Huanyan meant. Inviting Guan Nai to act in the film was the biggest obstacle they had encountered during the entire filming process. In comparison, it was easier to invite Shang Anren, who was semi-retired. As for the rumors, Shang Anren must have gotten over it and wouldn't continue to pursue the past. A Weekend Date was one of the top 3 indoor entertainment variety shows in the country. Based on the format of interviews, there were a total of 5 hosts who interacted with the invited celebrity guests. Every episode had a theme. The theme of this episode that Yi Huanyan brought the entire cast of Remaining Life to participate in was First Love. In the dressing room, Chen flipped through the program schedule in boredom. After flipping through 2 pages, she impatiently threw it aside. Seeing Yi Huanyan looking at it seriously, she reminded her, "Sis, the host will announce the program schedule later. It's okay if you don't look at it." Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows and smiled. "You're so experienced. How many variety shows have you been on?" Chapter 487. Chen scratched her head embarrassedly and chuckled. "Just twice. Be more serious and familiarize yourself with the process." Yi Huanyan was a little helpless. "This show is very popular. If you perform well, you might become famous overnight." Chen muttered, "I don't think being famous is a good thing." Nothing. Let me look at the process." Yi Huanyan actually heard what she said, but she pretended not to hear it. Before the recording of the show, Sun Yanhua came to visit. He was wearing a well-ironed sapphire blue casual suit, crop pants, and shiny leather shoes. His hair was also styled, revealing his delicate and handsome facial features. He was carrying a black paper bag in his hand and had a smile on his face. "Yesterday, Jingjing and Xiaorou went to the dessert shop to make chocolates and asked me to bring them to you. This small box is for Nano." Chen snatched it and raised her eyebrows. "Is there a share for me? I made a lot. I was afraid that you wouldn't eat them when you were on a diet." "Are you kidding me? I don't rely on losing weight to maintain my figure. I eat everything." As she spoke, Chen had already opened the box of chocolates inside and stuffed a big one into her mouth. As she ate, she muttered, "There are strawberry sandwiches." "The strawberry sandwiches should be made by Xiaorou," Sun Yanhua explained. "She likes strawberries more." "I like them too." Chen held the box of chocolates and refused to let go, looking like a bandit leader. Okay, I'll give them all to you. Just keep Naneo's share for him." Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her in annoyance. "I just told you that you're not in the mood to go on the show, but you're in the mood to eat." Now that Chen had the chocolates, she naturally didn't have the time to argue with Yi Huanyan. She hugged the box of chocolates and nestled in the corner of the dressing room, gorging on the chocolates. The makeup artist followed behind her and gasped. "Sit." Yi Huanyan pulled up a chair and pointed it out to Sun Yanhua. There was still some time before the program started recording, so it was enough for them to chat for a while. I heard that you guys have been living in the Ling family's old mansion recently? Sun Yanhua asked. Yes, it's quiet over there. The Four Seasons Villa is currently being renovated, so no one will be able to live there for at least half a year. So, I'm afraid we'll have to spend the spring festival there. Sun Yanhua nodded. Jingjing has been saying that she wants to play with Naneo. Everyone has been too busy during this period of time. When the movie's promotional period is over, let's arrange a time for everyone to get together. Speaking of this, Yi Huanyan thought of the pleasure group's current situation. I heard from Remy at the company meeting this afternoon that your contract is still with the pleasure group. What's going on? Chapter 488. The recording of the show went smoothly. After a round of self-introductions, Yi Huanyan was arranged to sit on the sofa with the cast and crew. Opposite her were the 5 hosts, and there were some fruits and snacks in the middle as decorations. Other than Chun-In, who couldn't control her mouth and occasionally ate a few mouthfuls, Shang, Anren, Sun Yanhua, and the second male lead, Bai Yu, didn't touch the things on the table. The focus of the audience was on the artists, so Yi Huanyan didn't feel like she was sitting on pins and needles like she had imagined. The male host of a weekend date, Zhou Xiaoyu, and his partner, Guan Na, were famous in the television station. The 2 partners had won the Golden Microphone Award 5 years in a row. The remaining 3 hosts didn't talk much, but they could throw out topics in time and control them freely so that the guests wouldn't feel awkward. Zhou Xiaoyu looked to be around 30 years old. He was very handsome and had become famous at a young age. He didn't have an impetuous aura. Instead, he had a scholarly aura. It was said that he used to be a Russian teacher at the Capital University of Political Science and Law. In comparison, Guan Na was much more lively. The 2 of them complemented each other well. Then, speaking of first love, I think 99% of the people here have it. Those who watch our show often know that we have never been a gossip show, so we definitely won't ask about the artist's privacy today. As Guan Na spoke, she turned her teasing gaze to Sun Yanhua. We all know that Brother Hua has a very famous song called Right for Her. May I ask, is this your first love, or Miss Xiaoro? Zheng Ro used to be the president of Sun Yanhua's global fan club on Weibo, and her ID was Miss Xiaoro. Later on, her marriage caused a huge uproar. This wasn't a secret. When Sun Yanhua was interviewed, he was often asked about his wife at home. Although he wasn't in the industry, in this era of entertainment, he would always be teased by the hosts. Sun Yanhua didn't think much of it and smiled very gently. It's written for my wife, Zheng Ro. Unexpectedly, Guan Na suddenly changed the topic. Oh, then Xiaoro isn't your first love. The audience was in an uproar, and the audience burst into laughter. Sun Yanhua's expression froze slightly. Guan Na asked again, it's just a joke. I heard that when Sun Yanhua returned to China, he mentioned in an interview that it was because of a girl. Is that girl his first love? When Yi Huanyan heard the first half of the sentence, she had just breathed a sigh of relief for Sun Yanhua when the second half of the sentence was thrown out without warning. She couldn't help but feel her heart tighten as she looked at Gu Qi, who was sitting below the stage. Gu Qi was also frowning, as if he hadn't expected this situation. Sun Yanhua sat next to Chun-In and was 2 people away from Yi Huanyan. At this moment, his expression was calm, as if he wasn't displeased by the host's relentless questions. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up the microphone and replied, 7 years ago, I returned to China for my first love in high school. The audience was in an uproar again. Yi Huanyan also broke out in cold sweat as her face paled a little. Even though Sun Yanhua was no longer walking the path of an idol, it wasn't a very wise thing to do to reveal his past relationship on a television program. These days, if he acted pitifully, he wouldn't get any sympathy. Instead, it would cause the passerby fans to dislike him. First love in high school? Guan Na continued to ask, then why did you only return to China 7 years ago? How many years have passed since you came back to look for her? Su Nianhua nodded and didn't evade the question. Can you talk about her? Can you mention it? There's nothing that can't be mentioned. Su Nianhua straightened his body and said without a change in expression, she's a very good girl. She looks lively and doesn't have much of a personality, but she has her own opinions when it comes to matters. Whether it was the path of music or the path of acting, she was the one who pointed me in the right direction. She can be considered my benefactor in life. When I first returned to China, I actually felt guilty. At that time, I had already broken up with her for 10 years. 10 years? Isn't that puppy love? The male host, Zhou Xiaoyu, asked. He probably felt that Guan Na's attitude was abnormal today, so he had to mention his phone number to make the atmosphere more relaxed. The audience burst into laughter. Su Nianhua curled the corners of his mouth and revealed a somewhat helpless smile. Yes, puppy love. A puppy love that even his parents didn't approve of. It was also a puppy love that didn't match his background. You didn't contact her for 10 years? So you came back to China to get back together with her? At first, I had this idea, but after a while I gave up on it. Why? She didn't agree? When it comes to love, the more a person has a clear conscience, the easier it is for them to let go. Back then, I left because I felt guilty, so I couldn't let go. Not long after I came back, she got married. The spectators were all sighing. Then you must feel very regretful. Not really. She's very good at comforting people, and she sees things more clearly than I do. It's not easy for first love to be friends like we are now. Guan Na seemed like she wanted to ask more questions, but Zhou Xiaoyu anxiously interrupted her. Look, when Su Nianhua was talking about his first love, Chen Yin kept eating nonstop. This is the first time I've seen a guest on our show actually finish an entire plate of pastries on the table. Do you want me to give you another plate? The originally gloomy atmosphere suddenly became lively. The camera on the big screen swept to Chen Yin's dazed expression after she finished eating. The audience immediately burst into laughter. Yi Huanyin's anxious heart also slowly calmed down. Later, when she was touching up her makeup during the intermission, Yi Huanyin took off the microphone on her chest and lowered her voice to ask Su Nianhua, Did you and Guan Na know each other before? Did you guys have a grudge? I think she's very aggressive. Su Nianhua glanced at the stage and said calmly, You could say that we had a little conflict. 7 years ago, when he was at the peak of his popularity back in China, he participated in all kinds of variety shows. After the national auditions for a singing show, he was one of the judges and gave Guan Na the lowest grade of F during the semifinals. Usually, you wouldn't remember this kind of thing so clearly, but something happened after that day. Guan Na got a revival card from another judge and directly entered the finals. Since she's already in the finals, why is she still so unforgiving toward you? Yi Huanyin frowned and looked a little puzzled. She didn't watch variety shows, so she wasn't sure what had happened that year. Su Nianhua's eyes showed a hint of mockery. Because I gave her the lowest grade of the show during the national broadcast of the finals. Because her average score was too low, she was directly eliminated. Even if she had connections with the show's organizers, there was nothing she could do. You're going too far. Why are you being so aggressive? Chen Yin, who was touching up her makeup, interrupted. She was holding a plate of mung bean cakes that the host had specially brought for her and was happily eating them. I'm afraid she did something even worse. Yi Huanyin's gaze was faint, as if she understood something. Su Nianhua nodded slightly and said very calmly, At that time, I had just returned to China and was very arrogant. I never thought that something like the unspoken rules would happen to me. Chapter 489. After the semifinals of the variety show 7 years ago, Guan Na knocked on Su Nianhua's door in transparent pajamas the night she got the resurrection card. Instead, she was scolded by Su Nianhua and cleared the level. Therefore, even if she was deliberately eliminated by Sun Yanhua in the competition with a low score, she didn't dare to say anything in the end. In this way, she lived in peace for a while. Unexpectedly, not long after that, she changed careers to become a host. With good luck and a unique style, she quickly became the #1 sister in the television station. Now, she had someone backing her up, but Sun Yanhua was declining day by day. He couldn't be compared to back then. Guan Na probably thought that she would finally have a chance to step on him after he had fallen from grace. The intermission was very short, and soon after, the second half of the show would start recording. Probably because there was some conflict between the two hosts during the break, Guan Na and Zhou Xiaoyu's expressions were obviously not very good. With Zhou Xiaoyu around, Guan Na's aggressive momentum finally restrained a little. Fortunately, the second half was basically a game segment, and there was no interview content. At the beginning, it was a big test of tacit understanding. Before the recording, Gu Qi told Yi Huanyan that he had already arranged with the program. This time, the set of the crew was set to be a harmonious one. After all, the news of Guan Na and Sheng Anren not getting along was spreading everywhere. Even things like slapping in the crew had been reported. At the scene of the show, the 5 people were asked the same 10 questions, and in the end, it was based on their understanding of each other. The favorite songs to listen to when they were students, the type of movies they liked, and so on were all simple questions. When the 4 people finished answering the answer board, Yi Huanyan and Sun Yanhua's answers were highly consistent. After the audience was in an uproar, Yi Huanyan and Sun Yanhua tacitly exchanged a look. They were good friends, and to be good friends, they must have the same interests and hobbies. When they first listened to underground rock with him, they listened to some very unpopular songs, but they were all each other's favorites. Heavens, this is too miraculous. Guan Na stared at Yi Huanyan teasingly. This is the first time in all my years of playing this game that I've seen such a perfect match. Sun Yanhua is ACDCBABCDD, and screenwriter Gu is ACDCBABCD. There's only a difference of one question. What's the relationship between the two of you? Although the question was asked in a half-joking tone, Yi Huanyan was still vigilant. It was not the behavior of a professional host to say such things in this kind of situation. She was obviously deliberately stirring up trouble, leading the audience to think differently about her relationship with Sun Yanhua. Yi Huanyan picked up the microphone and explained with a smile, "I have a good relationship with Sun Yanhua's wife, Tai Pingshi, so I often hang out with her. That's why I share some of their interests and hobbies." The topic should have been changed just like that, but Guan Na said meaningfully, "Guarding against fire, stealing, and guarding against best friends." Yi Huanyan narrowed her eyes and gave her a warning look. Guan Na frowned and avoided her gaze. The recording of the show ended late at night, and the group walked backstage. Chun Ying yawned and stretched. "I really can't stand it anymore. I thought that eating and drinking would be enough. He even insisted that I perform a set of fist techniques. I just started to warm up, and now he wants me to stop. It's really annoying." Sun Yanhua walked beside Yi Huanyan. The entertainment industry is like this. Words can be exchanged with swords. It's a good thing you're not part of this industry. If you don't like it, don't participate in this kind of show in the future. "It's okay, I'm going to the bathroom." Yi Huanyan smiled reluctantly. Although she was uncomfortable in her heart, she knew that it would be over soon. A strong dragon could not suppress a local snake. Guan Na had a great relationship with the TV station. Pa, as soon as she walked to the door of the bathroom, she heard a loud slap coming from inside. Yi Huanyan's footsteps paused slightly and stopped the door. She didn't go in. From the half-open door, she could vaguely see a wine-red corner of clothes, which was Sheng Anren's clothes today. "You dare to hit me?" Guan Na's tone was full of disbelief. "Guan Na, right? I don't know which temple you are from. You are so capable that you dare to provoke guests in the recorded program. I haven't been in the entertainment industry for half a year, but I underestimated the present host." Sheng Anren's voice was very cold. "This slap is to remind you not to provoke people who shouldn't be provoked." Believe it or not, the words you intentionally or unintentionally guided in the program will not be played on TV next week. There was a few seconds of silence in the bathroom. Yi Huanyan could almost feel Guan Na gnashing her teeth. I clearly heard that you, Su Nianhua, and Guan Na have always been at odds with each other. Why are you helping them? I'm not helping them. I just think that your current face makes me think of some things. It makes me feel disgusted. Not everyone is lucky enough to rely on a big tree for the rest of their lives. Guan Na. You take care of yourself. Get out. Then a cold wind passed through. Guan Na ran out of the bathroom in embarrassment, covering her face. She ran so fast that she didn't even see Yi Huanyan standing in the shadow, probably because she was afraid of being discovered. There was a sound of running water in the bathroom. Sheng Anren washed her hands. Her palms were red and painful. That slap was not light. When she looked up, she saw half a figure in the mirror standing behind her, looking at her thoughtfully. When did you come? Sheng Anren asked in surprise. Just when you did it. Oh, you saw it all. Her attitude was neither salty nor light. She took a tissue, wiped her hands slowly, and then rolled the tissue into a ball and threw it into the trash can. Thank you. Yi Huanyan looked at her, and his voice was very clear. Sheng Anren was slightly stunned, showing a somewhat unnatural look, and turned her head with a self-deprecating smile. What's there to thank me for? Thank me for avenging you and Su Nianhua? You think too much. I just saw Guan Na like that and thought of myself a few years ago. Looking at it now, I really think there was something wrong with my brain back then. You thought that slap was on her face, but in fact, I just wanted to slap my own face but couldn't do it. So I vented my anger. Still, thank you. The show is over. I'll go back first. Xiao Mu is waiting for me at the door. Sheng Anren clenched her fingers and walked out of the bathroom without looking back. Actually, you don't have to bear too much psychological burden. The past is the past. Yi Huanyan looked at her back. His voice was not loud, but after hearing her reply, his originally depressed mood seemed to have dissipated at this moment, and he felt refreshed. Everyone had two sides. There is probably no one in this world who was completely bad. It was just that because of persistence, some evil thoughts in the depths of human nature could not be suppressed. Perhaps because of these evil thoughts, they did wrong things, but in life, even if others were unwilling to forgive you, you should treat yourself well and learn to forgive yourself. Chapter 490. It was midnight when they came out of the TV station. There were still some support banners and photos left by fans of the guests outside. They were collected by the cleaners and thrown into the trash can. Chen Yin stood behind Yi Huanyan. She shrank her neck and climbed into the car quickly. She looked out the window and sighed. Look, the fan support is not environmentally friendly. If I become popular in the future, I will definitely not let my fans do that. You just finished a variety show, and you feel that you are going to be popular? Yi Huanyan looked back at her. It is not impossible. It is said that some people are born to be variety show stars. Maybe I can be a host in the future. Like Guan Na? Who is she? She speaks in a strange way and is full of bad ideas. If I want to do a variety show, I will do the kind of show that makes the guests feel comfortable and the audience also feel comfortable. Well, don't brag. Saturday is the Fengshan charity banquet. Try on the dress in advance. You and Su Nianhua will attend it together. I will walk the red carpet with Brother Hua. Chen Yin looked at Yi Huanyan in surprise. What about you? You and Lingzhan, right? Yi Huanyan didn't say yes or no. She turned her head to look out of the window and gave an irrelevant answer. It seems that it is going to snow again. She remembered that the last time she attended the Fengshan charity banquet was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, the chief editor of Fengshan was still Su Mang. At that banquet, Ling Han spent a lot of money to buy a portrait that should have been broken. It was the one that was painted on the napkin. When they got home in the early morning, Yi Huanyan and Chen Yin walked quietly in the yard. The snow on the road in the yard was cleaned by Uncle Zhang. But it had just snowed, so there was a thin layer of snow. It was very soft when they walked on it. When they entered the yard, the light in Ling Han's room was still on. Chun Yin yawned and went back to the room. Yi Huanyan stared at the light in Ling Han's room for a while. There was some warmth in her eyes. When she went back to the room, the light in the opposite room went out. The next afternoon, the results of the paternity test were delivered to Haiyan Media. Yi Huanyan threw the folder to Gu Qi without even looking at it. Together with the address on the back of the old lady's handwritten letter, she asked him to find the lawyer who notarized the old lady's belongings. I remember that the lawyer I asked you to investigate was surnamed Li. He worked for the law firm 6 years ago. I'm now a partner in the law firm. Gucci took over the conversation and pulled out a black card with the logo of the law firm on it. Lawyer Li Chunjung. I've already made an appointment. He'll be here after work this afternoon. Yi Huanyan took the business card and looked at it. Her thoughts drifted far away. Before the old lady's operation, her biggest wish was to see her and Ling Han get married. They had hurriedly gotten the marriage certificate and knelt in front of the old lady's bed. The old lady had asked her to sign the inheritance agreement. The specific amount of property was not stated in the notary certificate. Yi Huanyan guessed that it should be a large amount, but at that time, she did not have any expectations of how much property the child in her belly could inherit. She only thought that she could give birth to the child, that her grandmother's operation could be successful, and that she could live a good life with Ling Han in the future. Mr. Gu. Gucci's voice pulled her back from her thoughts. Yes. Have you made a decision about the charity banquet? Yi Huanyan's expression froze. She smiled and said, I'll go there alone. Okay. Gucci did not say much. He then reported the work to be done before the movie screening and the lucky draw on the day of the screening. The screening will be held in Jinling next week. The weather forecast says that it will snow heavily over there. I'm afraid that all the flights will be canceled. We will have to drive there. Yi Huanyan pondered for a few seconds and said, the snowy weather will affect the attendance of the cinema. If the weather is really bad, we can consider postponing the screening. Gucci nodded. I've talked to the cinema. The publicity department is also ready to adjust the time. It was a waste of God's gift for Gu Xinian to transfer Gucci to be her assistant. A person like him was probably an elite who could enter the top 500 companies in the world. Yet, he had to squeeze into a small company like hers to be her assistant. Gucci, I've really troubled you during this period. You're the one who helped the company get started. When the movie is over, the Gu Corporation should be reorganized. When the time comes, I'll ask my brother to transfer you back. Gucci was slightly stunned. Why? What am I not doing well enough? No, I just feel that it's a bit of a waste for you to work with me. If you're willing, I'll tell my brother to let you work by his side like Gulu. Or if you're willing to stay at the headquarters of the Gu Corporation, he'll definitely agree. Yi Huanyan continued to talk and did not notice that Gucci's expression was getting uglier. President Gu, if I don't want to stay here, no one can stop me. I'm the one who wants to stay here. Everyone has their own ideas and pursuits. I'm willing to stay here. Yi Huanyan stared at him for a few seconds and suddenly exhaled. She leaned back in her chair and shrugged. Spreading her hands, she looked nonchalant. All right, Gucci, I don't want to criticize you. No matter what, you're still a graduate from a prestigious university. Aren't you a little too narrow-minded in your pursuits? You're just staying here with a small company like mine that you don't even know if it has any development. You don't even know when you'll be able to make it big. If you want to stay here, then stay here. Gucci's face was stiff. He was still expressionless. To Yi Huanyan, this look was somewhat similar to Ling Han from a few years ago. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. When Lawyer Li arrives, I'll inform you again. Okay. Gucci closed the office door and stood in the corridor with a complicated expression. In his eyes, Lanjiang was not very prosperous. It was much worse than the places where he could have stayed. 3 years ago, when he was transferred from the company headquarters by Gu Xinian and appointed to this place to establish Haiyan Media. He actually did not think that he would stay here for so long. Gu Xinian told him that he would take over after his sister was discharged from the hospital, but he could go back to the headquarters to be the general manager at any time during this period. However, he waited until the company stabilized and did not leave. Year after year, he heard that the woman insisted on having surgery in Florida. He waited year after year. He read her scripts and all the stories she had written. He always felt that the people she wrote about had her shadow. He was more and more certain that he stayed because he wanted to see her and even to be by her side. I'm willing to stay here, not to stay in this company, but to stay in you. Chapter 491. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Lawyer Li brought the notarized document to Haiyan Media to hand it over to Yi Huanyan. After checking the paternity test report, Lawyer Li handed a document to Yi Huanyan. Inside is the password to the safe and some property transfer certificates. This was entrusted by old Madam Ling, and now it has been returned to its original owner. Compare the list on the notarization certificate. If there are no problems, as a guardian, you can sign here. Yi Huanyan solemnly took the document. The craft paper bag was very thick, and there were more than 10 pieces of A4 paper inside. They were all records of the old lady's real estate and shops over the years. There were even stock certificates of several large listed companies, and an account opened 10 years ago. Inside were the rents and stock dividends of the shops all over the years. The real estate is valued according to 6 years ago, but the stock dividends and shop rents can't be completely estimated. The money is in the account. You can check it yourself when the time comes. Yi Huanyan nodded. Thank you, Lawyer Li. Lawyer Li's gaze was very complicated. You're welcome. This is my job. It's just that Miss Yi has changed too much over the years. If you didn't take the initiative to find me and have so many documents to prove your identity, I'm afraid I wouldn't dare to recognize you. 6 years had indeed changed too much. After sending Lawyer Li away, Yi Huanyan sat behind her desk and frowned as she looked at the documents spread out in front of her. Just those real estate values were already sky high. The old lady was a traditional but bold woman. 6 years ago, when the housing price was still stable, she had invested all the money in her hands. Just those 50 properties were now estimated to be worth hundreds of millions. Now, most of these things were under Nanao's name, and she was taking care of them as his guardian. However, just the part that the old lady left to her was already a considerable amount of assets. These things were undoubtedly rain after a long drought for the pleasure group. She believed that if her grandmother was still alive, she would definitely want this money to be used to make the pleasure group make a comeback. It was Feng Shang's charity banquet on Saturday night. Feng Shang had booked the entire Yuehai Hotel this time. There was a long red carpet at the entrance of the hotel, and the whole scene was comparable to the opening ceremony of a film festival. As the host, Ji Xiaoye had been waiting in the venue in advance. Yi Huanyan and others were sitting in the car. From a distance, they saw Su Mang in a long black dress, holding her husband's arm and smiling gracefully on the red carpet. Her temperament was still the same as before. Why don't you come with us? Chun Yin's voice came from the other side. Today, she was wearing a black and white bodice jumpsuit. Her short hair was very neat, and her makeup was exquisite. She had a strong general attack style. Su Nianhua was wearing a white suit, and he was not inferior to Chun Yin's fierce aura. Instead, he looked more elegant and handsome. Yi Huanyan smiled. No need. I can walk on my own. Still waiting. Chen Yin curled her lips. I don't think Ling Han will come. After all, it is not appropriate for him to walk on crutches in such a big occasion. Xiaowu. Su Nianhua interrupted Chen Yin's words in time, with a bit of warning in his tone. Chen Yin stuck out her tongue, pulled the door of a car, and said, Forget what I said. Su Nianhua and Chen Yin walked on the red carpet. Yi Huanyan waited in the car for a while, and then she lifted her skirt and got out of the car. The promotional work for Remaining Life was done very well. Even though Sun Yanhua was already a retired singer before this, due to his lack of negative history, his popularity with the public was very good and he still received a lot of support from netizens. Yi Huanyan lifted the corner of her skirt and waited for Sun Yanhua and Chen Yin to walk in front of the giant screen to sign their signatures before slowly walking on the red carpet. She had only taken 2 steps when the flashes suddenly shone in her eyes. It was very glaring. She raised her head to block it, and a wave of dizziness hit her. She staggered and fell to the ground before she even had time to scream. The expected pain didn't come. A pair of strong hands held her arms firmly. She was happy and looked up. "Are you okay, Sister Yan Yan?" A clear young boy's voice rang in her ears. He was wearing a dark blue suit with a burgundy bow tie. His hair was specially styled with hair gel, and the childishness of a teenager faded away. He looked like a mature and steady man. "Ling Zhan?" Yi Huanyan looked a bit stunned. Ling Zhan smiled and helped her stand steadily. The flashbulbs kept flashing, and the sound of whispers could be heard. "Who is this? He's so handsome. Is he also an actor in the remaining life crew? I don't think this person was on the official poster before. Could he be Screenwriter Gu's boyfriend? How is that possible? Isn't Screenwriter Gu's boyfriend the CEO of the Pleasure Group? How long ago was that? Pleasure Group is now out of the picture. Screenwriter Gu broke up with Ling Han a long time ago." These words fell into Yi Huanyan's ears and were particularly harsh. "Let's go." A warmth came from the crook of his arm. Ling Zhan grabbed her arm and let her hold his arm. Then he walked directly toward the giant screen, pretending that he didn't hear the whispers of the reporters. But the reporters didn't buy it. She had just taken 2 steps when a microphone was placed in front of Yi Huanyan. "President Gu, have you confirmed that you have broken up with the former CEO of the Pleasure Group, Ling Han? Is this person beside you your new boyfriend? Is this gentleman also acting in Remaining Life? Why wasn't he on the official poster before?" "Screenwriter Gu, is this the newcomer promoted by Haiyan Media?" Yi Huanyan's expression changed slightly. She stopped in her tracks and looked at the reporters with a smile. "This is my cousin. He's not a public figure. So if you want to publish a press release, please make sure to censor his face." When the words cousin came out of Yi Huanyan's mouth, Ling Zhan's expression froze. "Does bringing your cousin to the red carpet mean that you have broken up with the former CEO of the Pleasure Group, Ling Han?" "No, he's been a little busy recently. We're fine. Thank you for your concern." "Busy with what? Is it because the Pleasure Group is going to be acquired? Can you explain why he announced that he had transferred his shares to his fiancée? Do you know that he has a fiancée?" This was probably the first time Yi Huanyan had faced so many reporters alone since she had returned to China. Previously, when Ling Han voluntarily gave up all of his shares in the Pleasure Group, it caused a huge uproar in the entertainment and financial industry. Unfortunately, at that time, Ling Han had disappeared and gone to Los Angeles. And now, Yi Huanyan thought that the matter had been settled. But she didn't expect that the reporters would continue to stir up trouble even though it had already been settled. Yi Huanyan showed some displeasure on her face and said coldly, "You seem to be very interested in this reporter. This reporter, you seem to be quite concerned about financial issues. It's a pity that you're an entertainment reporter. As for a fiancé, he doesn't have one. I'm very clear about that. Then how do you explain the marriage announcement published in the newspaper? Are you getting involved in someone else's relationship?" A sweet voice came from the crowd of reporters. When she heard this voice, Ling Zhan's eyes showed some suspicion. She looked in the direction of the voice, and her expression changed when she saw the female reporter. Chapter 492. The female reporter was wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses and a scarf. She stood in the crowd, and her face was almost invisible. She was holding a microphone in one hand, and her other hand was holding a phone to take photos. Yi Huanyan's eyes showed a trace of anger. She was about to refute when she heard a commotion in the crowd. "It's Ling Han," someone shouted, and Yi Huanyan's eyes narrowed. She followed the reporter's gaze and looked at the end of the red carpet. In the midst of the snowstorm, a tall man dressed in black walked towards her. The snowflakes fell on his broad shoulders, making his black clothes look more solemn. His slender legs walked on the red carpet, very stable and strong. A trace of warmth came from her palm, and his voice was in her ears, pouring into the cold wind. "There was a traffic jam on the road, so I'm late. Sorry." Yi Huanyan showed a look of disbelief. She didn't even remember how the red carpet was finished. She was held by his hand in a very stiff manner, and under the flash, she was led by him in front of the huge screen to sign her name, and then entered the hotel lobby. The heater warmed her hands. "Don't you feel cold wearing so little?" Ling Han's voice was a little hoarse. His clean and slender hands were holding her hands, and he was blowing on them. It was warm. She lowered her head and stared blankly at Ling Han's legs, which were walking freely, and muttered, "Your legs?" Ling Han looked down. "Wasn't your mother doing acupuncture for me before? It was really effective. Actually, 2 days ago, I could already walk without crutches. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I sent you a message to ask if you were coming to the banquet, but you didn't reply." Yi Huanyan's voice was a little choked. "I thought you didn't reply to me meant that you weren't coming." Until the night before, Ling Han hadn't mentioned the charity banquet to her. She couldn't hold it in anymore. The night before going to bed, she sent him a message to ask if he wanted to attend the banquet with her. She didn't get a reply until she fell asleep with her phone in her hand. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to give you a surprise." "What surprise?" "The reporters are making things difficult for me," Yi Huanyan grumbled unhappily. "These people have nothing better to do. They're just waiting for us to break up every day. Just now, a female reporter even said that I'm a mistress. She's the mistress. Her whole family are mistresses." Ling Han lovingly raised his hand to tidy up the loose hair on her temples. Yi Huanyan's face flushed red. She raised her eyes to look at him, unable to look away. It had been a long time since she had seen pleasure look so radiant. She was happy for him from the bottom of her heart. "Let's go in. It's cold outside." Ling Han reached out his hand to her, as if he wanted to hold her hand and walk. Yi Huanyan curled up the corners of her mouth. She smiled very sweetly and nodded heavily. Holding him with one hand and holding the corner of her dress with the other hand, they walked into the banquet hall, side by side. The theme of Fengshan every year was charity auction. Most of the things sold were the personal belongings of stars and artists. The funds from the auction were all donated to build Hope Primary School in remote mountainous areas. Originally, after entering the banquet hall, Yi Huanyan planned to find Ji Xiaoya. But as soon as she entered the banquet hall, she saw Su Mang waving to them at the main table near the stage. She raised her eyes to look at Ling Han. "Do you want to sit at the same table as Sister Su Mang?" Fengshan's charity banquet was said to be casual, and there was no designated seat. But in fact, everyone had a private comparison. The one who sat closer to the stage was naturally the one with the highest prestige and the one with the greatest ability. Su Mang was the former chief editor of Fengshan. Naturally, she sat in the seat closest to the stage. And the people sitting around her were all the top bosses in Lanjiang City. Yi Huanyan asked Ling Han because she was afraid that he would feel uncomfortable. "Yes," he responded with a grunt, but did not reveal any unusual expression. As soon as they sat down, Su Mang pulled Yi Huanyan and asked with a smile, "You two have been together for so long, but your wedding has always been delayed. I have received the wedding invitation of Xiaoyu and your brother. You two should hurry up." Yi Huanyan's eyes fell behind Su Mang. She said with a smile, "You are still talking about me. Have you and manager Li had a wedding? How old are we? How can we compare with you?" Su Mang lowered his head and smiled. The two chatted for a while. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they had a lot of topics to talk about. After Su Mang retired from Fengshan, he only came to the charity banquet every year. Usually, He traveled around the world all year round. It was a pleasure to travel around the world with Li Ao. After chatting for a while, Yi Huanyan was a little absent-minded. Ling Han was chatting with other people at the table behind. His voice was not loud, so a few words fell into Yi Huanyan's ears. If you need any help with pleasure, just let me know. Fortunately, there is no difficulty now. Ling Han's voice was very flat. Don't treat us as outsiders. After all, we were friends in business at the beginning. Now pleasure being acquired is really out of our expectation. So the business world is like a battlefield. If you make a mistake accidentally, you will be finished. This saying is really true. You also remind us that we can't trust our own family too much. Seeing that Yi Huanyan was absent-minded, Su Mang's eyes deepened a little. He quietly poked Li Ao behind him with his elbow. Li Ao sat up straight calmly, knocked on the edge of the round table, glanced at those bosses on the table who were talking in a sarcastic manner, and said with a fake smile, "The theme of today's banquet is charity. If you really have so much money that you can't spend it all, why don't you contribute more money to the auction later? Just take it as praying for yourself." The one who had just talked at length about Ling Han's mistakes in business suddenly felt a little angry. He smiled embarrassedly and said, that's right. After all, it is a charity banquet. For the sake of Manager Li, I have to do my best to help those children in the mountainous area." "So, Manager Chiao, do you mean that you're going to make a splash?" Li Ao looked at the man opposite him meaningfully. Making a splash meant that no matter what the first auction item was, he didn't need to participate in the bidding. No matter who bid for the last auction item, he would complete the transaction for the other party at 10 times the price and give the auction item to the person who bid for it. Manager Chiao's face turned pale. "Manager Li, you are kidding. You also know that my company has been busy with mergers and acquisitions recently. My funds have been tied up. How can I? This is BBL's new bright series of jewelry, right? It is the first one in the world. It really deserves its reputation, Mrs. Chiao." Su Mang's voice interrupted Manager Chiao's excuse. The young woman who was called Mrs. Chiao was stunned at first. After she came to her senses, there was some complacency in her eyes. "Yes, it is the wedding anniversary gift that my old Chiao bought for me. There is only one set in the world now. Honey, why are you pulling me?" Manager Chiao frowned and glanced at Manager Chiao beside her with a puzzled look. Su Mang withdrew his gaze and looked at Yi Huanyan tacitly. "Bright series. This set is worth 100 million yuan. Mrs. Chiao is so lucky." Chapter 493. Almost. Mr. Chiao said that he spent more than 100 million yuan. I can't remember the small change of several million yuan. Mrs. Chiao looked complacent, but she didn't know that her husband beside her was so angry that his face turned livid. Mrs. Chiao was Mr. Chiao's mistress last year. She was originally a model and had been Mr. Chiao's mistress for a few years. Later, his first wife passed away from cancer. She had indeed won Mr. Chiao's favor, so she was promoted to Mr. Chiao's mistress. However, it was one thing to be deeply in Mr. Chiao's heart, but whether he could bring her out to meet people was another matter. In Su Mang's words, this woman was a typical big-breasted but brainless woman. Except for pleasing men in bed, she had no ability at all. She was a hindrance to men when she showed up. Yi Huanyan smiled and said, "The brilliant series is good, but this set of diamonds is not good for people. In my opinion, the Cold Moon series that just came out at the beginning of this month is better. The price is not as luxurious as that of the Brilliant series, but it is inlaid with high-quality jade, which can regulate the body. It is good for women's skin if they wear it for a long time." "Really?" Mrs. Chiao's face tightened, and she showed some resentment in an instant. Seeing that Yi Huanyan's words seemed to be undermining her, it was inevitable for women to compare with each other. And seeing that Yi Huanyan didn't wear any jewelry, she became more dissatisfied and questioned, "Miss, which company are you from? Do you know jewelry?" President Chiao coughed in a hurry and scolded, "What company? She is the chairman of Haiyan Media, President Gu Huanyan. Don't talk nonsense if you don't know anything. After saying this, President Xiao glanced at Yi Huanyan embarrassedly. President Gu, I'm sorry. My wife is used to staying at home and has never seen you before. Yi Huanyan smiled and didn't show any displeasure. It doesn't matter. My company is small and not presentable. It's normal that Mrs. Qiao doesn't know it. Mrs. Qiao was still muttering in a low voice. Haiyan Media? I have never heard of it. President Qiao glared at her fiercely. Only then did she realize the seriousness of the matter and shut her mouth. The bosses present were giving face to Yi Huanyan, not because of Haiyan Media, but because she was the second daughter of the Gu Corporation and the younger sister of the president, Gu Sinian. Although something had happened to the Gu's financial group some time ago, it did not affect its status at all. Now that they were disturbed by Mrs. Qiao, who didn't know how to read people's expressions and didn't know how to speak, everyone at the table didn't look very good. Mrs. Qiao may not know much about Haiyan Media, but you should have heard of Yonghen Jewelry, right? Su Mang looked at Mrs. Qiao. Of course. Mrs. Qiao said matter-of-factly. Isn't BBL the diamond series under Eternal Jewelry? Then you should have heard of the founder of Everlasting Jewelry, Madame Wen Yi, right? The dazzling series of jewelry was made by her personally. She is the only daughter of a famous jewelry master. Who doesn't know her as long as she wears jewelry? Everyone at the table was waiting to see the fun. Everyone reminded Mrs. Qiao. Only President Xiao's face became darker and darker, but he couldn't find a reason to interrupt Su Mang's words. Su Mang's smile became more and more thought-provoking. Then, Mrs. Qiao, you should know Yan Yan. After all, Yan Yan is the only daughter of Madame Wen Yi. Madame Wen Yi's daughter? Mrs. Qiao exclaimed, really? The dazzling series of jewelry around your neck was made by a student of my mother. My mother gave some guidance and helped to cut the 2 diamonds in the middle. Yi Huanyan looked as if she was at ease. So this set of jewelry is actually not made by my mother, but it is very rare. My mother hasn't made jewelry for more than 10 years. Then the cold moon you just said, the cold moon was the concept design made by my mother herself. She chose all the jade by herself. The inlay craftsmanship was made by my mother's favorite student. Because people are old, they always pay more attention to health. But Mrs. Qiao's skin is very good. I think you don't need these. No. Mrs. Qiao was surprised. No. You said that the cold moon was designed by Madame Wen Yi personally. I didn't want this set, but since it was designed by Madame Wen Yi, I am sure. Cough, cough. President Qiao began to cough again. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and stopped smiling. Darling, did you hear that? The cold moon is the set I told you a few days ago. It can take good care of your skin. All the people at the table held back their laughter with a straight face. President Qiao's arm was shaken by Mrs. Qiao like a large rattledrum. His whole body shook violently together. Bye. At the moment when he finally heard President Qiao say yes, Su Mang glanced at the direction of the stage calmly. A set of the Cold Moon series costs more than 90 million yuan. President Qiao spends a lot of money for a woman. No wonder he is so generous. He is willing to make a hit for the children in the mountain area. It is a great honor for our Fengshan's charity dinner. President Qiao was in a dilemma. He bought a necklace worth more than 90 million yuan. Of course, he couldn't refuse the charity dinner. Mrs. Qiao was still happy. She discussed the effect of jewelry on beauty with Yi Huanyan, but she didn't find that her husband's face had almost fallen to the ground. If he didn't care about his face, he might have left on the spot. I'm going to get some fresh air. President Qiao pulled his tie. It seemed that he couldn't sit still. He pulled Mrs. Qiao, who didn't know the reason, and left the table. As soon as they disappeared outside the hall, some people at the table couldn't help laughing. Someone joked, Editor Su, is President Qiao going to run away at the last minute and make a blank check? Can't you send someone to follow him? I think President Ling is the only one at our table who is free. Why don't President Ling go and see whether President Qiao runs away with his wife? Ha ha ha! The people at the table burst into laughter. Ling Han seemed to turn a deaf ear to what they said. There was no expression on his face at all. Su Mang's face darkened. He looked at the person who provoked him first. If President Xiao runs away, won't President Hong, who is the most prestigious person at our table and has the biggest company now, do something for him? I heard that Venture Media recently signed a lot of young and beautiful girls without any effort. They plan to promote them after the spring. President Hong is going to celebrate the new year. Venture Media. Yi Huanyan's eyes narrowed. Her eyes fell on the middle-aged man across the table who had just joked with Ling Han. He was about 40 years old, about the same age as Ling Han. He looked very gentle and kind. There was always a smile on his face. But when she looked at him deeply, she felt that this person was elusive. He was the president of Venture Media. Hong Rizhang? Su Mang was obviously speaking for Ling Han, thinking of the old relationship between Su Mang and the pleasure group in the past. The people at the table also restrained themselves a little. They didn't dare to talk to Ling Han anymore. Their faces were full of resentment. Hong Rizhang's face didn't change. Chapter 494. Editor Su, you must be joking. Isn't the most capable and prestigious person at our table President Ling? Everyone's faces changed with this sentence. Everyone knows that President Ling single-handedly made the Pleasure Group the first media company in Lanjiang City. He took the lead in establishing the live broadcast platform and cultivated the first generation of Internet stars. Even compared with those media companies in the circle of the capital, he is not inferior. If Editor Su is the godmother of the fashion industry, then President Ling is the well-deserved godfather of the media industry. These words were so reasonable that no one could refute it. But everyone knew Ling Han's current situation. In such a situation, there was only one purpose for him to say these words. He raised his head first and then suppressed it. But until now, he only relies on women. Ling Han. Yi Huanyan stood up and looked at Ling Han's back. Her eyes were full of worries. She was about to catch up with him, but Su Mang grabbed her wrist. Looking back, she saw that Su Mang was hinting her not to go with his eyes. And she glimpsed that Li Ao had already caught up with him. She breathed a sigh of relief and sat down again. As soon as she sat down, Hong Rizhang's voice sounded again. It was not like the sarcasm just now, but with a bit of solicitude. In fact, President Gu is such a rare talent. You can marry any kind of man. I've always admired Mr. Gu's talent. You're able to open your own company and write scripts. Every script you write is very popular. There's a popular saying that goes, you can rely on your looks, but you have to rely on your talent. Yi Huanyan only felt sick. If she didn't care about Su Mang's face, she would have pounded the table and left at this moment. Su Mang's face was not very good, either. The annual symbolic event of the Fengshang Charity Dinner was planned by her. When the Fengshang Charity Dinner was mentioned, she, Su Mang, would definitely be mentioned. The media industry and the fashion industry had always been on good terms. They even relied on the fashion industry to improve the level of the artists under the media companies. So, over the years, the media moguls had been very respectful to Su Mang. Hong Rizhang obviously annoyed Su Mang with what happened today. President Hong, you must be joking. I don't have any talent. I just hang around casually. Yi Huanyan gave him a perfunctory look. Hong Rizhang, on the other hand, could answer anything. After all, she's the daughter of the god of stocks. She can achieve things that ordinary people can't achieve in their lifetime. Genes really can't be underestimated. Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and felt extremely disgusted. I don't have such big ambitions, and I don't need to achieve the achievements of the elders in my family. CEO Hong, you flatter me. Women don't need to have big dreams. At the end of the day, the happiness of a lifetime is still the belonging of a family. It's a pity that a talent like Miss Gu is matched with Ling Han. Yi Huanyan had originally planned to feign civility until the end of the banquet, but when she heard these words, her face instantly darkened. She lifted her eyes to stare at him without any trace of politeness and said coldly, "A pity? Compared to Ling Han, CEO Hong, do you have a suitable person to recommend to me, or do you want to recommend yourself?" When she spoke, her eyes were full of coldness, and her tone was aggressive. She didn't give Hong Rizhang a chance to speak at all and stood up with her hands on the table. Even if you rely on women to make a living, you still need to be capable. CEO Hong, why don't you go back and look in the mirror and see what you look like? If you end up in Ling Han's current situation, it's another matter if you can live off a woman. Gu Huanyan Yu, angry out of humiliation. Yi Huanyan sneered. Then I'll give you one last sentence. With that said, she placed both hands on the table and leaned over slightly to stare at the man opposite her. Her voice became colder and colder, and she said word by word, "Who are you?" Gu Huanyan, say that again. Hong Rizhang was so angry that his face turned red. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly felt a pressure on his shoulder, so that he couldn't get up. A tall shadow came over and enveloped him. A cold man's voice sounded beside his ear. "Did my sister offend you in any way?" Hong Rizhang's face became stiff, and he suddenly turned his head back. Gu Xinian clenched his fists and made a creaking sound. He groaned and showed a painful expression. He was extremely frightened. In the eyes of the Gu family, a venture media was not even worth a fart. On the rooftop of the hotel, Li Ao took out a pack of cigarettes from his arms, shook out one, and handed it to Ling Han. Ling Han reached out and took it. The lighter lit up with a blue flame in the night sky. With a pada sound, the metal case closed, and a crisp sound was heard. Smoke instantly filled between his slender and clean fingers. "You don't smoke?" Ling Han turned back and looked at Li Ao. Li Ao smiled. "I quit. Su Mang always coughs and can't smell this." Ling Han nodded slightly with a complicated expression. "I just came here to take a breath of fresh air. CEO Li, you don't need to waste time with me for the sake of Sister Su Mang. Do you think I chased you out because I thought you cared about what Hong Rizhang said?" Ling Han frowned and looked at Li Ao confusedly. "Don't worry. Let's not talk about work. I just came out to take a breath of fresh air. As you said, I don't need to waste time worrying about other people's affairs. You can't swallow your pride to ask for help, but when others take the initiative to offer to help you, you feel insulted. You can't accept it. A businessman has to be flexible. You're not as good as your father." When he heard this, Ling Han's eyes became a little tighter. Li Ao and Ling Dongming were old acquaintances. He was Ling Dongming's junior fellow apprentice. They both graduated from the Department of Economics and Management of Lanjiang University. And Su Mang was a special girl among the poor students in the remote mountainous area, sponsored by Ling Dongming at that time. She was not very special. If she hadn't been admitted to Lanjiang University, one of the top 3 universities in the country in the college entrance examination, she would have just been an ordinary girl who had been sponsored. But she was ambitious and hardworking. She walked out of the mountain, so she was lucky to continue to be sponsored by Ling Dongming. "Really? Do you still remember my father?" It had been a long time, so his state of mind was naturally different. If someone told him in front of him that he was not as good as Ling Dongming 6 years ago, he would be full of indifference, but he was unwilling to accept it in his heart. But now it didn't matter, or he admitted this fact. Of course, Li Ao clasped his hands on the edge of the rooftop and looked up at the sky. He seemed to be recalling something. "Your father appears to be an elegant, lofty, and arrogant person. However, when it comes to critical moments, he is someone who knows when to yield and when not. He has the spirit of self-sacrifice." Maybe it was because he praised Ling Dongming too much. Ling Han thought of his mother and retorted coldly, "But sometimes it is not a good word to say that he is flexible. It can also be said that he has no principles." "He is very principled." Li Ao sighed with a faint look in his eyes. "If he really has no principles, your stepmother should be Su Mang instead of Jiang Milan." Chapter 495. Ling Han's expression froze. He frowned and stared at Li Ao. President Li, isn't it too much to make up stories about my father and sister Su Mang? It's not a story. It's just that there are many things you don't know. More than 20 years ago, Ling Dongming was re-employed by Lanjiang University as a visiting professor. At that time, Su Mang, a student sponsored by him, had just been admitted to the Department of Economics and Management of Lanjiang University and became his student. After graduation, he directly entered the pleasure group. At first, he was just a secretary in the secretariat. Later, he was outstanding and was promoted to the chief secretary 2 years later. At the annual meeting of the company, Ling Dongming was drunk. Su Mang drove him home. But on the way, he heard his name from Ling Dongming's mouth. He murmured all the way, which made Su Mang confused and had a car accident. Do you know Su Mang's feelings for your father? The kind of feelings that are above love and kinship, and can even sacrifice one's life. When the car accident happened, Su Mang's first reaction was not to save herself, but to throw herself at Ling Dongming. Ling Dongming lay in the hospital for 3 days. When he woke up, he heard that Su Mang had been given a notice of critical illness. He lost his usual elegant demeanor and stayed at the door of the intensive care unit all night long. Although it is reasonable, the people who are involved in it can understand best what kind of feelings a man has for a woman. Do you think your mother didn't understand anything at that time? Su Mang woke up a month later. Soon after waking up, he was discharged from the hospital and was taken home by Wen Qingwan. The three of them had a meal together and talked about everything. Your father's feelings for Su Mang are very forbearing. He thought it was a sin, so he never showed it. But feelings can't be restrained even if you restrain yourself. You should understand. Ling Han frowned and didn't comment. It was weird to listen to a man who was not very familiar with or even a stranger talk about his father's history of infidelity. After all, he was partial to his mother, so it was inevitable that he had prejudice. But your father's decision was to let Su Mang resign and never see him again. Since loyalty was out of the question, this was the last responsibility a man could bear for his marriage. But your mother meant to let them be the same as before. Do you know what it means to be the same as before? Li Ao asked. Thinking back to the past, Ling Han felt a chill in his heart. He would go home for a period of time in winter and summer vacation every year. That period of time was one of the few times he spent with his family. In that memory, Su Mang would go to their house to make dumplings every Friday night, go on an outing with their family at the end of every month, and even have a barbecue outdoors with them on New Year's Eve every year. Your maternal grandfather was biased towards your second uncle, so it's easy to imagine who would end up in his hands. But later, Ling Dongming suddenly changed his mind when he found out about your mother's depression, so some people couldn't hold it in anymore. The deeper you dug, the clearer you could see how evil people were. You should still remember what was in your mother's bag on the day of the car accident, right? The certificate of equity transfer. It was a transfer agreement signed by Ling Dongming to cede 12% of his shares to Umbo and his son, as well as a consent letter for Umbo to invest in the pleasure company. Jiang Milan wanted to marry Ling Dongming to find a backer for the rest of her life, and Umbo wanted status and money. Regardless of whether they were old acquaintances or not, they hit it off on this matter. At that time, your father thought that your mother wanted to bring the equity transfer agreement to Umbo to sign. So, Umbo got everything he wanted. But have you ever thought that your mother might have regretted it and wanted to go to the notary office to terminate the contract? But the dead tell no tales. No one can be sure if your mother's depression had improved or if she had accepted it. Ling Han's emotions were fluctuating. The cigarette but burned out, but he didn't notice the scarlet sparks burning his fingers. Li Ao frowned and shook off the cigarette but between his fingers, so he didn't get hurt. I'm not telling you this for you to hurt yourself here. Think carefully about what you should do. The pleasure company doesn't belong to you alone. It's something that your father guarded until he died. Until he died. Ling Han's face was livid. You know so clearly about something that happened decades ago. When did you start to suspect and investigate this? That car accident. Chapter 496. When Qingwan died in a car accident. Jiang Milan and Ling Dongming also died in a car accident. Everyone thought it was a coincidence. But could there really be such a coincidence? It's a coincidence. 2 years ago, I went to Hong Kong and passed by Shenzhen. An old classmate treated me to a meal. During the meal, I met the truck driver who hit your father's car. At that time, he had already opened a hardware store and was a small boss. He was living a very good life. When Yi Huanyan found the rooftop, Ling Han's face was frighteningly dark. Ling Han. Yi Huanyan approached carefully. The snowflakes on the rooftop danced. She took 2 steps, and her hair turned white. Ling Han didn't know how long he had been standing on the rooftop, but there was a pile of cigarette butts in the snow by his feet. Don't take what they said to heart. They're just a bunch of despicable people who want to add insult to injury. Ling Han's face was dark, and his expression was hidden in the dim light. Yi Huanyan walked closer and wanted to look at his face, but she cried out in surprise. When she came back to her senses, she was already tightly in his arms. Ling Han. She tried to call his name, but felt his shoulders tremble. She widened her eyes in shock. Her hands hovered around his waist for a long time before they finally landed on his back and patted him gently. This was the first time she saw Ling Han cry. Even though she had heard Ji Xiaoya and Sun Yanhua describe how he broke down and cried in the villa after she fell off the cliff in the car accident, she didn't see it with her own eyes. Moreover, Ling Han was usually taciturn and cold, so it was really hard to imagine him crying. He hugged her very tightly, almost suffocating her. His shoulders trembled violently, and in the heavy snow, it was especially heart-wrenching. She patted his back and tried to comfort him. It doesn't matter. If the company is gone, we can start over. Even the 2 of us can start over, let alone the company. Don't give yourself so much pressure. That venture media CEO is full of evil tricks. He's nothing compared to you. From beginning to end, she did not hear Ling Han's cries, but when he let go of her, his face was full of tear stains. His eyes were red, as if they were dyed with blood. It was terrifying. Yi Huanyan realized that something was wrong and hesitated. What happened to you? Ling Han's face was tense, and his face was excessively pale. Yen, I plan to take back pleasure. This was the first time Yi Huanyan had heard him mention pleasure to her on his own accord ever since he had lost it. She was stunned for a few seconds before she said carefully, I'll help you. Yes. It was snowing heavily. Yi Huanyan looked up at Ling Han. This man was still as tall as before. His sideburns were stained with a bit of gray that did not match his age. He seemed to have experienced many vicissitudes of life, but also seemed more mature. He seemed to be different from usual. Yi Huanyan stared at him for a long time and finally saw a trace of difference. In the past, when he had to make a decision, he was calm, but also cold and emotionless. But now, his calm appearance reminded Yi Huanyan of a person. Ling Dongming from 10 years ago. The banquet was still in full swing, and all the big stars took turns to perform on stage. In the press conference room outside the hall, a man's figure shuttled through the crowd. His 187 meters height was particularly eye-catching, and his handsome appearance was enough to make people mistake him for a new talent of some media company. This figure, regardless of his image, rushed through the crowd and chased a woman's figure in the direction of the toilet in the corner. Hey, Shue, you received the video, right? Damn, Brother Lingon's taste now is really unconventional. That Gu Huanyan, other than having the same name as Yi Huanyan, is nothing like her at all. She looks like AF * King Vixen. There was a voice of common hatred on the other end of the phone, which echoed. Yes, I think this woman is not a good person. She is more like a fox spirit than that Shang Anren. Before the phone call was finished, there was a noise outside. "Hey, this is the women's toilet, you, shwe. I don't know what happened outside. I'll go out and have a look. Maybe there will be some fun." Ling Li opened the safety latch of the toilet cubicle, pushed the door, and walked out. She squeezed into the crowd outside and looked at the door. At the moment when she saw the person coming, her face turned pale, and she suddenly pulled the scarf around her neck to cover her face. Ling Zhan's eyes were like torches and fell on her accurately. "Before I make a move, you better follow me obediently." At the emergency exit outside the press reception room, a cold wind blew. Ling Li pulled the scarf around her neck, took off the black-rimmed glasses exclusive to otakus, pinched the bridge of her nose, and then revealed a delicate mixed-race face. She walked with Ling Zhan and nagged. "Brother, I'm also trying to help you. Didn't you come back to the country to see what kind of woman brother Ling Han has taken fancy to? You're also fighting for justice for Yi Huanyan, right?" "Me too, just in a different way." "Why did I come back?" "Who told you?" "Who else could it be? The whole family can see it, okay? Even the youngest one knows." Ling Zhan stopped and turned to stare at her. "Do you know who you scolded as a mistress on the red carpet today? Isn't it just brother Ling Han's new lover? The second daughter of the Gu Corporation. Who else could it be? She's obviously a coquettish woman. She's not a good person. She's Sister Yan Yan." Ling Zhan's voice was not loud, so for a few seconds after she finished speaking, Ling Li was still talking to herself about how bad that woman was. She even scolded her for being a jinx. After a while, her voice came to an abrupt halt. Her deep brown eyes stared blankly at Ling Zhan with an expression of disbelief, as if she could not believe what she had just heard. "What did you just say? I don't know where you got the news to come here and make trouble, but I'm telling you now." The woman standing next to cousin on the red carpet was Sister Yan Yan. "Are you crazy?" Ling Li raised her hand to touch Ling Zhan's forehead, but he impatiently pushed her hand away. "No, brother, you have a fever, right? How does that woman look like Yi Huanyan? She doesn't look like her at all, okay? Are you crazy?" Ling Zhan took a deep breath and said patiently, "Do you still remember the car accident from 6 years ago?" Ling Li nodded hesitantly. After the car accident, Sister Yan Yan had severe burns on 80% of her body. She had to undergo skin grafts repeatedly for 5 years, and now she looks like this. Whether you believe it or not, I'm asking you to pack up and go back to America. Don't cause trouble for me here." Ling Li's face was full of shock. He stared at Ling Zhan in shock. "Skin grafts? Plastic surgery? Oh my God." Ling Li's memory of Yi Huanyan was still stuck at the time when eldest grandma passed away. She cried until she fainted at the funeral. The pregnant woman looked so thin in a black dress. She was arrogantly splashed with cold water in the face by a mistress, but she did not receive any pity from her cousin. It made one's heart ache, but there was nothing they could do. Chapter 497. I'm going to the bathroom. You can go back first. I'm afraid that Xiao Yu and others are looking for you. Coming back from the rooftop, Ling Han stopped and said in a hoarse voice. Yi Huanyan nodded and squeezed his hand hard. "Don't worry. Everything will be fine." "Okay." At the charity banquet, Liao just returned to his seat. Hong Rizhang was joking with several bosses at the next table. From time to time, the words pleasure group fell into Su Mang's ears. A villain gets what he wants. Su Mang drank a mouthful of wine with slight anger in her eyes. Liao patted her shoulder and lowered his voice. "I'm afraid that he won't be complacent for long." Su Mang raised her eyes. "How is Ling Han?" "He's fine." Liao looked indifferent. "You don't have to be so nervous about Ling Han. Don't forget that he has Gu's group behind him now. Outsiders don't know the close relationship between him and Gu's group. They only think that the second miss of the Gu family is playing with men. Don't you know? With her, I'm afraid that Hong Rizhang's plan to buy pleasure group will fail." According to Ling Han's character, he may not be willing to ask Yan Yan for help. That's because he hasn't been forced to do so. Su Mang was slightly stunned. She stared at Li Ao for a few seconds and said in a hoarse voice, "What did you say to him?" "Half of it. He guessed the rest by himself." Su Mang's face tightened. "Li Ao, I said that this matter has nothing to do with him. You promised me that you wouldn't tell me. He needs a little stimulation." Li Ao held her hand under the table with a comforting look. "If we don't give him a little stimulation at this time, he will be useless." Su Mang frowned, and her sullen look gradually disappeared. "What's more, he has the right to know these things. Even if we don't tell him, he will find out by himself one day. It's for his own good to tell him early, so that he can take precautions." Schemes from family members were often the most blinding. That was because you would always be less vigilant against your family members. Subconsciously, you would not be fully prepared against them. There would always be a bit of leeway. However, family members would always stab you in the back. Even if you were prepared, you would still be caught off guard. While they were talking, Yi Huanyan had already returned, holding up the corner of her dress. There was some worry on her face, but it was not obvious. By the time she returned to her seat, she had already regained her previous calm. Su Mang glanced at her worriedly and asked tentatively, "How is it? Didn't Ling Han come back with you?" "He went to the bathroom. He's fine." Yi Huanyan lowered her voice and said, "Sister Su Mang, you don't have to do what I asked you to do. He has thought it through and made all the preparations." Su Mang was slightly stunned. After a while, he nodded slightly and looked back at Li Ao thoughtfully. Just as Li Ao had said, this stimulation had come at the right time. Hong Rizhang was still chatting with the boss sitting next to him. Seeing Yi Huanyan come back, he straightened his suit, pulled the chair back to his original seat, and sat right across from Yi Huanyan. He looked at her with a complicated expression, but he was not as arrogant as before. "Boss Hong, do you have anything else to say?" Yi Huanyan threw a sentence angrily. All the people at the table held their breath and dared not to say anything. Just now, when Yi Huanyan was not here, everyone saw that Gu Xinian pressed Hong Rizhang with one hand. No one knew what he said in Hong Rizhang's ear, but his face changed greatly. Then, when someone at the table mentioned the things between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han, he did not dare to belittle them at will. Instead, he went to the next seat to talk with his tail between his legs. It could be said that the young boss of the Gu family was very protective of his sister. Some people thought that Gu Huanyan had given birth and got married, so the Gu family did not care too much about her. So they all changed their minds and wanted to talk to her more to get close to her. Excuse me. I need to go to the bathroom." Hong Rizhang's face was not very good. He probably did not expect that Yi Huanyan would not give him any face at all. She was so aggressive as soon as she came up. He was embarrassed for a while and could not stay there anymore. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Coincidentally, the opening ceremony on the stage had just ended. Sun Yanhua's singing partner, Chuning, dressed in a long-sleeved gown, performed a sword dance as an opening curtain call. The tide-like clattering of the waves of applause covered up the delicate atmosphere on the table. "Why do I feel that Xiaoyu is not in good spirits today?" Yi Huanyan's eyes fell on the side of the stage. She always felt that Ji Xiaoyu's face was extraordinarily pale today. Su Mang followed her eyes and nodded. "Yes, she is not in good spirits. She must be busy. She should have stayed up for several nights for this banquet. It is like this every year at this time. After the banquet is over, let her have a good rest. Well, she hasn't been home for several days. See, my brother took the initiative to come to her. I used to hear that the young boss of the Goose Group was cold and indifferent and never missed a woman. I didn't expect that there was an exception. And I didn't expect that this exception was your little apprentice, Xiaoyu." Yi Huanyan took over the words. They chatted for a while, and the atmosphere was much more harmonious. In the bathroom of the side hall of the hotel, Ling Han was about to push the door when a familiar voice came into his ears. "Mr. Su, you'd better consider my suggestion carefully. The pleasure group is now a big building that is about to collapse. If you don't prepare for yourself and find your next company in advance, you are playing a joke on your own future. After all, the time of an artist is very precious. You should know this better than me. In the cubicle, the slender fingers slightly curled and stopped the movement of opening the door. Thank you for your concern, President Hong. I don't think that the pleasure group will collapse like this. After all, it has a century-old foundation there. It is very stable step by step. It's better to be safe than sorry. Besides, the current president of the pleasure group is not Ling Han. Do you think that people like the father and son of the Wen family can be trusted? Do you think that they can run the pleasure group well? President Hong, I am indebted to President Ling, and he never gave up on me when I was at my lowest point. No matter who the current president of the pleasure group is, this group is the hard work of several generations of the Ling family. If I leave at this time, I would be too ungrateful. Hong Rizhang chuckled, and his face was full of contempt. You are saying this now because you think that Ling Han has the Gu Corporation as his backing, so you have nothing to fear, right? Do you really think that the pleasure group will return to his hands? I am not afraid to tell you that I have already discussed with Umbo and his son. As long as Umbo comes out of the detention center, they will sign the acquisition contract. What pleasure group in the future will only be a subsidiary of my venture media? How about it? Now you still insist on staying at the pleasure group. Even if you stay at the pleasure group, when the acquisition contract comes into effect, all of you who were originally under the pleasure group will belong to the venture media group. It is just that compared to now, when that time comes, it will be two different things. Taking the initiative to leave the pleasure group to join the venture media group was undoubtedly a show of goodwill to Hong Rizhang. Su Nianhua had been appearing frequently recently, and his declining popularity in the past was recovering. With his popularity in the country, poaching and signing him was undoubtedly an important blow to the reputation of the venture media group. Chapter 498. Su Nianhua was half a head taller than Hong Rizhang. Even though Hong Rizhang had a cold aura around him, he didn't lose out to him at all. It was as if this person in front of him wasn't a big shot in the media industry who could pose a threat to him. His attitude was still neither servile nor overbearing, with a sense of alienation. Thank you for your kind intentions, President Hong. Since President Hong is certain that Pleasure Group will be acquired by Venture Media, then let's wait for that day. 1 or 2 days won't make a difference. Su Nianhua, don't fail to appreciate my kindness. Hong Rizhang's expression changed. You're just an outdated singer. Do you think you can become popular again just because you have Gu Huanyan backing you? What do you mean? What do I mean? Hong Rizhang laughed coldly. Don't think that others don't know what kind of person Gu Huanyan is. You and Ling Han get along harmoniously, and you're dead set on her. Why, now you're so self-righteous about relying on a woman to make a living. Su Nianhua's expression darkened instantly. President Hong, don't go overboard with your words. Yan and I are simply Yan? Hong Rizhang's gaze became more ambiguous. You call her so intimately. Why? Did you accidentally call her by her pet name in bed? You're slandering me. Su Nianhua had a good upbringing since he was young, and he rarely encountered situations where he argued with others. Even though he knew that the truth was completely different from what Hong Rizhang said, he couldn't find any words to retort. With a bang, the door of the washroom was slammed open. A tall figure walked down the stairs and came forward with a gloomy face. President Hong is so overbearing. Do you have any improper thoughts about my friend? I've seen many unspoken rules in this industry, but this is the first time I've seen someone forcing a woman into prostitution in the bathroom. President Hong, you've really opened my eyes. Ling Han stood beside Su Nianhua and stared coldly at Hong Rizhang. His face was full of ridicule. I don't reject homosexuality, but isn't it a little disgusting for you to threaten and tempt a straight man who already has a family? Hong Rizhang's expression changed. What nonsense are you talking about? When did I? No? Why don't I go out and shout for someone to judge? Ling Han curled his lips and said meaningfully, Ling Han, we're both decent people. What do you mean by pouring dirty water on my head? Hong Rizhong glared at him angrily. How can you say that? What's there to be ashamed of? You're the CEO of Venture Media, after all. Now, you're even thick-skinned enough to poach my people. Compared to CEO Hong's thick skin, I'm already being lenient. Ling Han stared coldly at Hong Rizhong and said condescendingly, before the contract expires, Sun Yanhua is part of the Pleasure Corporation. You don't have to worry about him, CEO Hong. Humph. Hong Rizhong sneered. He's part of the Pleasure Corporation. But what about CEO Ling? If I remember correctly, you don't have anything to do with the Pleasure Corporation anymore, right? Whether I have anything to do with them or not, it doesn't stop me from standing here and talking to CEO Hong, right? You, Hong Rizhong frowned and looked angry. He seemed to have thought of something and took a deep breath before saying slowly, You're just a stray dog, yet you can be so smug just by relying on a woman. I've really underestimated you. If you have a time to think of ways to help the Pleasure Corporation retain their artistes, why don't you think of ways to retain the heart of the second daughter of the Gu family? You don't have to worry about that, CEO Hong. No matter what I want to retain or gain, it's much easier than CEO Hong trying to curry favor with my woman and then my artiste. Hong Rizhong was so angry that his face turned green and he couldn't say a word. Sun Yanhua followed closely behind Ling Han as they walked out of the washroom. This was the first time he saw Ling Han arguing with someone. Looking at such a taciturn person who didn't lose in a battle of words, Sun Yanhua couldn't help but admire him. When it comes to arguing, Hong Rizhong is really lacking compared to you. When we talk about the acquisition later, he'll know that I'm not just arguing with him. Sun Yanhua was slightly taken aback. He raised his head and looked at Ling Han. He was standing in the shadows, looking towards the direction of the stage. He could only see the outline of his face. It was very distinct and three-dimensional, with a hint of coldness. What attracted Sun Yanhua's attention was the certainty in those cold eyes. Acquisition? Sun Yanhua mulled over these three words in his heart. When he looked up again, there was a hint of realization in his eyes. You're finally ready to retaliate? There was a hint of anticipation in his tone, which made Ling Han look surprised. He turned to look at him and frowned. He stared at him inquiringly. Your reaction. He seemed to be looking forward to it. Previously, Xiaorou told me that when the time is right, you'll definitely retaliate. She even promised me that Venture Media's acquisition of the Pleasure Corporation would definitely turn things around at the last minute. Zheng Rou said that? Yes. Ling Han hesitated for a few seconds. Zheng Rou has learned something about business operation. No, she reads a lot of novels and movies. Ling Han's mouth twitched. He decisively withdrew his gaze from Sun Yanhua. Well, she reads a lot of novels and movies. Good reason. The theme of the charity dinner was auction. When Ling Han returned to his seat, President Xiao, who had ridiculed him before, had already won the bid for a female artist's concert battle gown. The final price of the battle gown was $1.5 million, which meant that President Xiao had to pay 10 times the price, which was $15 million, for this battle gown. And this battle gown could only be gifted to the bidder. This rule was set when Su Mang was still alive. The host asked President Xiao and his wife, who was very willing to be in the limelight, to go on the stage and gift the battle gown to the bidder. The people below watched the fun and talked about it. President Xiao has suffered a loss this time. He doesn't look good. It's the first time that I've heard of such a thing. 10 times the price. If the battle gown was sold at $15 million, wouldn't he have to pay $150 million? It's too bad. $150 million is nothing. I heard that it was not proposed by Su Mang at all. Since Feng Shang held this charity banquet, it has only happened twice. This is the second time. Do you know how much money someone bid for the first time? How much? 500 million. The sound of discussion spread to the direction of the main table. It seemed that no one at the main table knew about this. They all stretched out their heads and looked around. Who? Who was the first one? Su Mang looked a little embarrassed. Yi Huanyan looked at Li Ao with a smile. He lowered his voice and said, "It seems that the story of President Li spending a lot of money to win a beauty smile 15 years ago has become a legend." You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.